Okay, we're doing a Dominion Roundtable kind of thingy discussion, whatchamadoozah, who's a whatever video. Maybe we'll just start by kind of saying what we generally thought of the movie. What's your guys' opinion? Oh, I guess I should
Uh,
introduce you too. Like these are the guys who
sure.
are in the ARC videos. Eric and Garrett.
and many others.
Hey.
Yep, they're the people I most often
Um.
do content with on the this channel and my other channel.
mhm. I thought it was fine.
Okay. A glowing endorsement from Eric. What was your general opinion, Garrett?
Overall, I think I'd say I put it above Fallen Kingdom actually.
Okay. Another glowing endorsement there.
I
Right.
on the same level as Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah. I think like structurally this is the film in the franchise I have the most issues with.
Ooh. Considering your issues with Jurassic World, that's.
See, I feel like
I suppose that's a different discussion. I suppose.
yeah, my issues with Jurassic World are like tone and like some
Right.
of the decisions they make, and so
Yeah.
those issues like carry over to the sequels, including this film, and I don't really hold it against the sequels or this film because they were established previously.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
Dominion to me is like the first of the Jurassic films where there's legitimately things that happen and plot points that happen where I go like, why? What is the? I don't, huh? Like, why do this? Things like that. I have notes which I've written down here, uh, chronologically as I went through the film again. So yeah, that's I'll get to my points as they come up. I guess the things that bothered me.
Yeah.
I can see where you're going for there because as the movie went, again, everything was very well. Gee, that's convenient to me. Like so many point things happen. It's
Yeah.
oh, that was. I get that that's a literary or not literary, but plot contrivance has to happen to move the plot along.
Does it though? Does it though?
Yes,
So,
It
it's
doesn't have to.
sometimes it does. Sometimes you have a good story and you need to move piece A to
Right.
position B, and there's
No.
no great way to do it in the 2 hour time of a movie. I
Right.
don't think any of the insane plot contrivances in this film had to be plot contrivances. They just are. It's just bad writing,
not
unfortunately.
arguing that part. And that's not what I was saying anyway. I was saying that I get that usually that kind of has to
Mhm.
be the case. But this movie was just lousy with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the the villain's goal is probably the largest of them for me.
I have a lot to say about Dodgson and Biosin in my notes.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time.
Like I'll get the big picture here on what I'm gonna get to with that, but like I like the inclusion of Biosin. I like the overarching plot with the locusts and stuff. A lot of people don't, but I do like that. I think it's very Crichton. I think it's good. It's a logical extension of like the genetic themes. I'm happy to see a Jurassic film actually tackle bigger themes, especially one of the newer films. So I think that's all really neat. I don't think it's executed very well, and I think Dodgson doesn't feel like Dodgson to me. Is ultimately a big problem I have with him.
No, they turned him into a fucking Steve Jobs.
Yeah, which I like. I really like the idea of like the tech CEO guy running Biosim, but it should have been the CEO from the novels, like Bill Steingarten, I think is his name, and Dodgson should have just been his like fixer, his right hand man. Then
Yeah.
that would have been a more interesting dynamic, I think. You kind of have the CEO that turns the blind eye a little bit, even though he knows some really shady, underhanded shit is happening, and then you have the absolutely vicious guy that's more in line with novel Dodgson and
Yeah.
feels like Dodgson from JP1.
Yeah, it should be more of a sociopath.
Yeah.
Right. The guy who would actually knock fucking Sarah Harding off a goddamn boat.
Right. Like I liked the new guy's performance as just a CEO tech guy. It just doesn't fit as Dodgson.
Agreed.
Yeah. I also
I
have
think that's just movie Dodgson because that they did establish him in the first movie as to be not the hands-on type.
Yeah, but he still felt a little bit more.
Too much of a limp dick.
But he felt more. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. More like collected, I think, in JP1. Like he was a little bit of that, pretend to be a secret agent thing that Nedry gives him some grief about, but like he was still competent and there, and he was lacking the weirdness
Right.
that
No, you're right.
the new Dodgson has.
Yeah. In retrospect, you're right. I thought the awkwardness kind of fit, but now that I think about it,
Yeah, I mean it's not like a deal breaker or anything, the depiction of Dodgson in this film, because there isn't that much to build the character off of, so they can change it. That's very much a case of preference, that I would have preferred the weird tech CEO guy to be a different character and Dodgson to be more in line with novel Dodgson. But yeah. Any other opening comments, or I can start going through my notes chronologically and we can discuss individual points?
I had one that I came up with only just earlier today, kind of contemplating this. And this is a throwback shout out to Dan's JP3 page.
A classic.
Yeah. I am almost certain that I read a fan fiction on Dan's JP3 page back in 2001 or 2002 that pretty much was all of this movie. Except for more inclusion of fan favorites, or maybe not fan favorites, but paleo nerd favorites like Sucho Mimus and stuff like that. And Baryonyx, which they already had. And there was Baryonyx in this. But like they had fan fiction moments like Ellie and Grant getting back together because Mark, I think that one explicitly Mark turned out to either be like abusive or something crazy, like a full-on take him out of the plot by way of not just Ellie having an offhand remark if he's just out of the picture because they're split kind of thing.
I would not like that.
No, that'd be too heavy-handed.
And not just heavy-handed, it removes kind of some agency from Sattler in a way. Like, she doesn't seem like the kind of woman, in my opinion, who'd get into an abusive relationship. Or stick around in it long enough to have kids.
I mean, you say that, but that's sadly not how abusive relationships work usually.
Yeah, well, that's me as a dead fish person.
I don't remember that. Was there an implication that the relationship was abusive?
No.
Or just straight up?
That was the fan fiction, like
Yeah.
in
Okay.
the movie.
All right.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like the fan fiction was so much more heavy-handed, but I'm pretty sure it was Biosyn.
I
it was
agree.
Dodgson with his own island, and
Well,
he got everybody back, including Lex and Tim.
Yeah, I think a lot of those points are fairly obvious directions for the franchise to go in terms of like pleasing fans.
But it surprised me in that that's how we culminate the thing is basically someone wrote a fan fiction 20 odd years ago that eventually got to be like the same way the franchise ended up truly. Like there was
right.
I don't know, it's not like I don't think it'd be even physically possible to go and find that. The Wayback Machine would have that. I'd be interested to read it. I know when it brought in the Baryonyx and Sucho, there was a bit with them explicitly not killing people because of the Piscavorian aspects.
So much for that.
Yeah, like they encounter them when the park breaks down kind of thing, and I don't remember if it was Grant or just somebody who knew their shit kind of thing, was like, we're fine, just don't be in the water, don't look like a fish, basically. They won't worry about us.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to actively be chasing small land animals or human-sized animals to hunt. And I think that's how one of the bad guy goons got ate, was by the Sucho, because he was like in a boat that got capsized and the Sucho ate him like he was an amphibian or something.
It's a good death.
Yeah.
That's a good death.
Yeah, a little bit of Dominion feels kind of like one of those movies that it seems like the first draft of the script might have just been a Reddit thread.
Yeah.
It's like, what do we want in a movie? Oh, we got the old cast, and we got to get Ellen and Sutter back together, and Biosyn and Dodgson, and
Right.
It's like
Right.
just kind of collect all the ideas from Reddit that people want to see in movies and start from there.
Yeah, and I think it definitely suffered by trying to force all that stuff.
Oh yeah, this movie was
In-
bloated. Like this should have been the last movie and this movie.
Oh yeah, and then that's something I kind of came to, and I know I'm not alone in this thought either. Of after this, I was pointing out how the reason I look more favorably on this though over Fallen Kingdom is because Fallen Kingdom blatantly felt like two different movies.
Yeah.
With the island stuff and the horror stuff, like that definitely would have benefited from getting those two concepts split up. But this one was, I don't think splitting this one up would have worked or fixed it. Like you couldn't split the two concepts.
Yeah, it's so interthreaded that it you can't like chop it in half like you could FK and fix that. It's just all interwoven. Yeah. I think that's kind of why, despite the structural problems of Fallen Kingdom, it doesn't really bother me that much, is because even though the ideas are really disjointed, they're at least like fully executed within the film, it feels like. It's just structurally very strange having that mid-film transition to a whole different movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely with you there. Especially considering the horror part was way more up. I can't remember the director's name right now, but his alley.
Bayona.
Like, yeah, like he could have. I enjoyed. And now I'm going way too far back, but I was fine with the horror segments of that movie if it was just a horror movie set in the Jurassic World franchise, which sadly now we're perfectly set up to approach. Like with the full dinosaurs are interwoven in the very final scenes of this, which they've been building up to with the little battle at Big Rock and even before the Department of Fish and Wildlife dinosaur sightings website went up with all the clippets. But like, yeah,
do they ever explain why dinosaurs are so more ubiquitous?
It's just some throwaway lines and references to like people breeding them and cloning new ones and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, very hand waved.
Yeah, it's just glossed over.
Sure.
I mean, that's a big sticking point a lot of people had about Fallen Kingdom is like, oh, what's the real threat here? 20 dinosaurs escaped onto the mainland. Blah. It's like, we don't know if there were other holding areas in the mansion we don't see in the film that also were released at the same time. We don't know how many dinosaurs were actually sold in the auction. That film does explicitly have like embryos or DNA samples that they show in a briefcase at one moment. Like it's in the context of the film, it doesn't seem like there's that many dinosaurs, but there's, with a little bit of creative thought, you can find an opening there to expand it a little bit. They don't do it very well. They just kind of are like, oh, there was more. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And just go with it. But yeah.
Although we did get, for one, like talking about the briefcase there, I know it was just really blatant pandering of nostalgia. Not that this movie wasn't lousy with it, but the Barbasol can having been found was kind of funny.
What? It serves no fucking role in the film.
It's just a set piece. It's not meant to be a plot point. It's just there.
Yeah, but that's like, it introduces so many questions, and it's only there for the fans who are going to ask those questions. That's a thing I have a few times that crops up in my notes. Is
makes
like,
me wonder why Doc even bothered to like keep it.
Exactly. Who is this for?
Well, I think that's explicitly, that's like his Hammond's Amber Cane.
Yeah, but
like, it's keepsake for him.
Yeah, well, it's a keepsake that he like goes out of his way to like keep, which is, I think, silly for the character. But maybe that's partially built on my, headcanon of what Dodgson should be like. But it just introduces a lot of questions to my mind of how the fuck did he even get it?
Well, I imagine that's gonna be answered.
Well,
it's gonna tie into Camp Cretaceous season 5.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just in the context of the film. I'm trying not to like get into Camp Cretaceous because we don't know what it's gonna do with it yet. And then it felt really cheesy too when it comes up in his death scene too, and you see the can roll away again. It's like, yeah, but it's a fucking rusted relic with nothing in it now. It's got no significance anymore. It's kind of ham-fisted callback, but
I mean this movie in a nutshell.
yeah.
And it's like meets the same fate as Nedry for some reason.
I have a lot of notes on that too, both good and positive, or good and bad. I mean, good and positive would both be good. Good and positive notes on that scene.
Okay.
But we should start going through my notes here chronologically, so we can cover all the plot points in the movie and some sort of structure, maybe. Yeah. We get the film opens with the mosasaur because they don't know what to do with the mosasaur, so they just put it in the opening shot. Kind of a problem that we had in Fallen Kingdom after the opening scene of what do we do anymore with the mosasaur?
Right.
I don't
just leave it. Just let it in the wild.
Yeah, it's just out there hanging out.
Yeah.
It's like
People
they feel.
know about it.
Yeah, it's like they know people like the mosasaur, so they feel like they have to put it in somehow. So
Right.
it's just like have it attack a submersible / a boat every movie, and then just go for it. I think that scene is very, very pointless. And as far as opening the film goes, it like compared to the Stinger opening for Fallen Kingdom, which is fantastic. It's whatever. I actually like the news sequence that follows more for seeing the state of the world. And I also saw some people complaining about that online as being like a really cheap, easy way to dump some exposition on the audience. But like, this movie's not high art anyway, so I'd rather have a fun little in-universe news story than like disconnected scenes. So I actually don't mind the news sequence. I thought it was a little cheap that they reused footage from the Battle at Big Rock short film in there as well. Like you spend however much money on this and we're filming for all of COVID, and
They never showed that angle during Battle at Big Rock.
no, that was a new shot, but they show clips from the end of the short film.
Oh yeah.
Of the dinosaurs in the world.
But I think that one I'm fine with because I just figured most people didn't see Battle at Big Rock. It's like the Barbasol can in a way.
Yeah.
That was a fandom thing. Like, not many people sought that out and watched it.
It's a minor complaint, but it would have been a fun opportunity to see more instances of the dinosaurs in the real world rather than seeing the same scenes again, just in a different film. And that's a complaint people have, is that there's not enough dinosaurs in the real world going on in there. And it probably wouldn't have headed off that complaint, but it would have, maybe helped a little bit.
Maybe it goes the other way around though. Maybe they had those scenes like done and made, and they were meant for Dominion, but they're like, we have them ready now. You want to just throw them in at the Battle of Big Rock? Like, yeah, fuck it, sure.
Maybe. I don't remember the exact time frame for when Dominion filming started and when Big Rock was done, but they were tied closely together because it's like the same screenwriters and everything for Big Rock, so it might have been the case, something like that. What I don't like is getting Dodgson introduced right away at the start, which is something I'll come back to a few times, but I feel like there should have been more reveals in this film, and Dodgson's involvement should have been one of them, which is really weird too, because they like in the marketing they really stayed away from Dodgson. Like, he doesn't show up in the trailers, I don't think, at all. And he's like the most significant role in the film that you don't get like any information about if you're not digging into like casting news and stuff like that. So it was really strange to me that they actually protected him as if he were a reveal, and then he's just fucking not. My notes specifically say Dodgson, we got Dodgson here.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think it would have been... I have like a whole like rewrite of the broad strokes of the film structure in my notes later on, but I think it would have been a lot funner if we wouldn't have known the Biosyn connections right away and Dodgson right away. I think it would have been... I think the film needed some sort of like reveal, and there's just not really any of that, which is detrimental to it as a film, I think.
I don't know. On that part, I feel like it is a more, because we're fans and we know the mythos and the universe intimately, we know. But I feel like for people going in, that maybe there's people that probably there's kids that have seen this movie that may not have ever seen the
Right.
originals. It's we have the Star Wars, sequel trilogy issue kind of or prequel trilogy stuff now.
Yeah. But like
where some things are big shout outs and nods to the fans like us, and other things are like he isn't played off as cleanly the villain in that first bit.
Sure.
Like it isn't obvious that he's the bad guy. Like, and he's not I don't know, like Vincent D'Onofrio has like sinister vibes to him right off the bat. Like he's shady and up to no good.
It's more because Vincent D'Onofrio and not necessarily because his character.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of ties into my point that as far as for anybody who cares about Biosyn or Dodgson, it's for the fans, and to just immediately set it up for the fans who are the ones who are going to notice it, it doesn't really achieve anything. Like for the typical viewer, it doesn't matter that his name was given.
Well, and shown, and he's supposed like he's a big part of why the dinosaurs are out there, seemingly, because he's doing all the studies, and like people that don't know the mythos that can read between the lines get the implications of this new guy working in and doing this stuff. And I think one of the reveals from that also is, but this is a payoff for this trilogy, is of course he's the one who's been working with Wu this whole time.
That's not even clear in the context of the film, I don't think.
Really? When Wu gets ferried away in like Fallen Kingdom and in Dominion? Like I thought...
It's not... I don't think it's clear from the ending of Fallen Kingdom and from this film that he was working with Biosyn during Fallen Kingdom. That's supposed to be the case, as I understand it. But I'm wondering if some of that was deleted scenes, maybe, because there is a bunch of stuff that's cut from this film, like 15 minutes or something. They said in an interview has been cut.
I believe it.
And Colton Trevorrow wants to reinstate that footage in some form.
Mm-hmm.
Either as just deleted scenes or a director's cut or something, maybe. But because the plot leaks explicitly said that the plot leaks said early on that Dodgson was behind everything with Wu, and going back even to Jurassic World, that Hoskins, I think, and Wu were both working with Biosyn. But that's not explicit at all. Like, I think in the context of Dominion, from what I remember and from my notes, it seems like you just kind of are introduced to Wu being there at Biosyn without there being a deeper history implied in the film.
That's an awfully big, like,
Well, it doesn't seem unreasonable to me that Wu might end up getting a job at Biosyn afterwards. I think it could be entirely reasonable that a geneticist like that could get snapped up by a different company.
Yeah, but I didn't read any of those leaks for this movie. Like, I stayed away from as much of that stuff as I could. Like, I think I only watched the first couple trailers, and then I stopped. I made sure to avoid TV spots and things like that. Although, motherfucking thanks, YouTube algorithm, I definitely seen some hand cam stuff of the finale fight. Or not even how it goes, but just like these three dinosaurs fighting like a fucking course.
Yeah, it was pretty bad for that. I read the plot leaks before they were even like official. When there were just some like dude posting on Reddit a bunch of like nonsense that nobody believed. That's when I read the plot for the film. Right. So I just read it. I'm like, oh, that's certainly something. We'll see if that's true or not. And then the first trailer comes out with a locust and everybody's like, oh shit, that crackpot was not a crackpot.
He is now the Malcolm.
Yep.
Boy, does he hate being right all the time.
But I think that my whole thought here with Dodgson is a case where like splitting the character into two would have benefited it. Because then you could introduce the one character and then keep the Dodgson reveal for the fans later. But
definitely a better way to do it.
Yeah. Again, it's a fairly mild thing. I got some more comments on Biosyn coming up soon, but I'll wait till I get to that point on the notes. I thought the cattle ranch scene that followed was interesting, like the illegal breeding of ceratopsians. A little on the nose, being that it's a cattle ranch full of only ceratopsians, but I thought that was a fairly fun introduction to Claire's activism again.
And how far it's gone now.
Yeah. It also
Yeah,
serves to like establish why there's more dinosaurs in the world.
Mm-hmm. And I think the ceratopsian things make sense because that would be something close to what they can not contain, but they had the facilities kind of set for.
Yeah.
Like I feel like obviously they're not going to go with ornithomimids kind of thing because they are just too fast. They'd just be jumping fences constantly. Wouldn't be able to contain those for shit. I think most hadrosaurs are too vertical, so cattle facilities wouldn't work. But at least while ceratopsians are small, as you've seen, like normal dairy industry stuff could keep at a certain size under mostly in check until they released them into the pasture.
I'll allow it. I mean, there's also just a larger variety of ceratopsids in canon than a lot of other types of herbivores, so.
I suppose, yeah. And they had all three of the big ones there.
Yeah.
Sino, Nauset, and Trike, of course.
Yeah. The Pachyrhinosaurus continues to be missing despite being considered canon. It's fine. They all got eaten. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I thought that was a fun little sequence and all. Then we go from that to the same sequence, but from Owen's perspective of him wrangling a parasaur. It's essentially a scene that serves to tell us the exact same thing we just saw. That, like, people round up dinosaurs and whatnot. How people are interacting with dinosaurs. Except I think the Owen para wrangling sequence is awful.
There is some questionable feats of strength from Star-Lord there.
It's especially jarring because we've literally got a parasaur roundup scene in The Lost World where it's like a dozen dudes struggling to contain one parasaur.
Yeah.
It's like the worst dinosaur he could be wrangling for that comparison. Like, just replace it with a Gallimimus, and then the whole sequence still works. He can still, lasso and capture a dinosaur. It's just not as jarring and weird. I mean, you see the scale of that frickin' para compared to the horse and him, and somehow that horse isn't just going ass over tea kettle. And somehow he's not just being dragged along the ground like a frickin' cartoon. Like,
well, he was dragged along.
Well, later on, yeah.
Yeah, but he should have been dragged like 4 miles. He can't stop that para.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That was him going full Captain America and shit.
I think I'm firmly in the anti-Owen camp at this point with these films, where I am so tired of that character and his action hero nonsense.
He is full God mode stew.
Yeah. Those paras are fucking gorgeous, though. I love the new para.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, consensus is fuck that scene.
Yeah, that was the first big scene I had a lot of issues with, and it happened so early
in the trailer.
In the film.
People were calling it out, and I kind of like tried to hand wave it a little bit, but then watching it the full thing and the full getting run through the fucking snowy forest, like, we are all from Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Your sorry ass ain't moving that fast in open air where you're going to be moving through there without any sort of facial covering. Like, that is, I've done enough snowmobiling.
They're very bad about being in like cold weather.
That's like movies in general, though. Most movies really don't capture winter properly in general.
Yeah.
I can always like hand wave it as like, oh, it's early spring. It's like 1 degree below freezing and everything is pretty okay.
Okay, yeah, I do remember those moments when it's like you just get out of winter, that the melt has started, and it's like, oh man, it's 31 degrees today. I'm going out in a fucking
shorts.
Yeah, short t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like St. Patrick's Day around here, basically.
Yeah. All right. Well, then after the para wrangling, we get our introduction to Blue and her baby. Interestingly, the parthenogenesis aspect of that is introduced in the VR game that came out that I never got to play because it was a fucking Oculus exclusive.
Oh yeah. I
like it. I like I like the parthenogenesis aspect of things better than the sex change classic aspect of things for dinosaur breeding. Like, changing from male to female in a single sex environment is very iconic, and it is part of the franchise, and I'm not arguing against that. Just divorced from that, like my love of the franchise and everything, I think just saying either dinosaurs inherently were parthenogenic or the DNA sequence gaps gave them the capability to self-reproduce, I think is more believable. So I like including that.
They threw in the line about the monitor thing.
Yeah. Which is true. So I really like seeing that. However, I think the baby serves no purpose in the film. And that's probably my biggest sticking point with the entire plot of the film, is I absolutely do not fucking understand why Wu wants the baby raptor at this point.
Even when they explain it,
it makes no sense. Because he talks about why he wants Maisie. I get that. Fine.
Yeah.
The whole viral recombination thing, which I'll get to. But then he also says he needs the pure DNA strand from the raptor. But why? It's got nothing to do with the viral recombination. It's got...
He had a line about that. I just don't remember what the specific was.
I think I might have the line written down in my notes when I get to it. But it's really hand-wavy. It's just like... It's literally something like, and we need the pure DNA strand of the raptor.
Like, to compare and contrast, like...
Yeah.
I think it was... They needed to know how Maisie's DNA was changed compared to how Blue's wasn't.
Which makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, I mean, hand wavy, like you said.
Like,
but they threw in their reasoning for them. But yes, I do agree that the whole goddamn movie thing, Blue is kind of like the mosasaur that you covered. Like, Blue didn't have any reason to be in this at all.
Yep.
Or Blue could have just been in it, but like, no, we need a baby raptor because people reacted really good to that footage of baby Blue and the Raptor Squad in Fallen Kingdom, so we need a marketable baby raptor to make more toys of.
Blue is popular too. So,
yeah. Blue is absolutely suffering from the same problem as the Mosa. It's just like, we got to have the thing in the film. What do we do with it? So.
Mm-hmm.
And now Beta is our Grogu. Fantastic.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. And Beta should be a totally feral raptor and probably lethal and not friendly.
Well, no, because remember, that was part of the thing with the videos of Blue in the last one, is that Blue wasn't like the other three raptors.
True, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of. I was thinking more back to Muldoon's lethal at 6 months, but you're right, that Blue is an exception to that rule, basically.
Yes.
All right, I'll allow it.
Yeah, but no, Beta and Blue are still a problem for not needing to be involved here.
Absolutely.
Which, thank you, like, my God, I know I'm jumping ahead here, but the alumni, I was so happy with all of their performances, with what they had to work with. Like, Grant, Ellie, and Malcolm all felt like themselves still.
For the most part. I have, it's actually just like one sequence with Malcolm near the end that bothered me. But
I think Grant's part bothered me.
I have
as a whole, but
I have some mild issues. It's not so much his performance; it's just his role in the film.
Yeah, that might be more apt.
Yeah,
for my feelings towards.
For context here, I will say though, I think Sam Neill though was implementing in his how he approached a character the Jurassic Park 3 stuff. Like, it wasn't just classic first movie Grant, it was also Jurassic Park 3, where there was more of a crotchety, cantankerous about being dragged along for this stuff kind of guy, was definitely in there.
Yeah, his character continuity felt really good between like the full sequence of films, which I didn't feel as much with Malcolm. Malcolm felt a lot more JP1 Malcolm, and there wasn't much I felt of Lost World in his character performance.
Other than driving that Jeep, maybe, but I think that was deliberate.
I mean, you can also talk about how jarring the transition is from JP1 Malcolm to Lost World Malcolm. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's part of the problem of having to roll some of the Lost World novel characters into new and like changing. Like, I wish we would have got the Lost World from the book.
Yeah,
like,
I
as much as like one of my not fever dream, but like long shot dreams of like a Jurassic Park 1 getting remade accurately to the book. Like, that changes some things, but not enough where it's like, I need this in my life. It'd be really cool. But an accurate to book Lost World, oh my god, I'd fucking love that.
Yeah, I would only really like to see it remade if they would change the format up a bit and do like a mini series or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be fucking great too.
Yeah, and the Lost World book. Some people don't like it. I like the Lost World novel. I think more than JP1. Not by like a lot or anything. I like the setup a lot more of like the abandoned island and all that, exploring these old facilities and stuff like that. Not ancient's the wrong term, but you know, I like that vibe of things.
It's definitely not the amazing Cuttlefish Carnos. Definitely not.
Definitely not that. Those definitely don't influence my decisions at all. I have a lot of issues with the ending of the Jurassic Park novel. I feel like it's got a very weak conclusion. There's all these like plot threads that are wrapped up really quickly, and the whole sequence of like counting raptor eggs in the novel is very strange to me. I just feel like the ending of that kind of lets me down. Like the book needed another good 50 or 100 pages or something to properly justify a lot of the plot lines. Like the whole thing with the raptors on the boat. They're like, oh, we see baby raptors on the boat. We really got to get back to civilization to like call that in before they reach the mainland. And then the resolution of that plot line is just the guys on the boat killed the raptors, and that's it. There's like one sentence near the end of the book to tie that plot line up. This is not about the novel. This discussion's not about the Jurassic Park novel.
So we'll move away. Although I will say that goes into the Dodgson thing, and we can tie that in. Dodgson got Book Hammond's death, basically.
Yeah.
Different dinosaur, but very similar. Yeah.
Well, they couldn't do another Compy death. Like that would have been. Although, admittedly, yes, Compies would have made a lot more sense. But... Yeah. But like Compies in the tunnels would have made complete sense, and they would be easily swarming a small pack of Dilos in the tunnels. That was a little stranger, but I was okay with it because of all the throwbacks to Nedry, since we couldn't have Knight back for this movie for obvious reasons.
Well, if we're talking about we're gonna talk about the Dilos a little bit right here. I'm not okay with them randomly being in the tunnels. It's completely ridiculous that they'd be in a sealed hyperloop train tunnel. It should have just been Dodgson. The tunnel shut down. Dodgson had to leave the tunnel, and it goes through an escape hatch outside, and then runs into Dilos. Just spend 30 seconds showing him climbing a ladder, and do the same scene.
A few shots of him traveling the tunnel, and then
you could literally have him run back into the tunnel and back into the train car and still play out the death the same way. Like, if it's so weird that he just exits the train and there are immediately Dilophosaurs all throughout the tunnel. That the problem I have with a lot of the dinosaur stuff in this film is it reeks of set pieces where it's just like, and a dinosaur is here now. It doesn't feel natural at all. That happens over and over again.
The Dimetrodons for me were the worst example of that.
Yeah, for sure. Dimetrodons, it happens a lot just a ton of times.
And it sucks though, because if it just didn't use Dimetrodons for that, if they would have went with Megalania or some other large monitor lizard, perfectly fucking fine. Makes sense for them to be hanging out in the caves.
Yeah. Yeah, my girlfriend literally asked, but don't Dimetrodons have like sails for sunning themselves, and they live in a cave? And it's like, movies though.
I do want to say, like, on the topic of Malcolm, I think his characterization in Lost World is fine until you get to about like the Raptors and San Diego. Then he becomes more like an action hero, and it's a little out of character. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I
don't think as much of a departure because he's more wizened up about dinosaurs after Jurassic Park. So being like, "Fuck you, Hammond," is fine.
Yeah, I can see it as an evolution of the character, but then it gets backtracked.
You got my lady caught up in the shit. Yeah. Like that, I that's fine.
He's not overtly an unheroic character. Like that's why he gets injured in the first film, is for trying to be a hero.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That all works for me. I mean, I'm willing to have them backtrack on his character in the context of Lost World. It's like fine.
He's
They want the
older
original
at that
dynamic
point.
back. It's whatever.
I'm trying to see if he would. Was he like undercover?
In Biosyn,
Yeah.
not at
Or did he
first.
sort of just like, okay.
The way I see it is Malcolm's presence in Biosyn was he's taking a gig.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that from, and this is a weird one to say tie-in, but like Jurassic World Evolutions.
Yeah.
He is there consulting and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see it as very much that, and that's actually where I enjoyed him in this, is because he had the easiest transition, where I'm sure Dern and Neil kind of had to get back into a headspace to do these characters again, whereas Goldblum has been doing Malcolm on and off for a very
his
long
whole
time.
career.
Yeah, well, yeah, his entire
played-
life to an extent.
Yeah, he played Malcolm in Thor Ragnarok and
And in The Fly, you know.
yeah, I saw
when
somebody
he
say
was
that it's just
DNA'd with the fly, and then he learned a lot about genetic sequencing and stuff like that, and that's why he was there on the island helping Wu.
yeah, it's not that Malcolm is or that Goldblum's always playing Malcolm. It's that Goldblum is always playing Seth Brundle from The Fly. Yeah, and it kind of works too that in Lost World we're seeing Malcolm at his lowest because he's disgraced then for speaking out about Jurassic Park, and then he's vindicated by that film. So a reversion to his cockier, older personality kind of works. So I'm fine with the characterization there for the most part. Just one particular instance, which I'll get to later on, that I want to bring up, but that's very, very like in the moment in the context of the scene. So I'm not going to cover it here.
I don't know if we want to talk about the three like reuniting, but later on. But
I mean, we can talk about that kind of stuff. It's
well, I thought it was very like they were, like they never, you know, they caught up as if they'd never been separated for however many years.
yeah. I also feel like the stuff they went through that they should have
A
had
little bit too natural, you know.
more contact with each other in general than being like, I haven't talked to you since Jurassic Park, that traumatic event that changed all of
Yeah.
our lives. Like people tend to bond in shared trauma, so
Right. Maybe they've, you know, kept in contact to some degree, but
yeah.
it seems like Grant really.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah, I
Like,
kind of
Grant
buy
didn't
buy
like-
Grant out of all of them sliding away from everybody else, especially
Right.
after him and Sattler break up or whatever.
Yeah, whereas I fully believe that there was probably some light correspondence through the years, which is why Sattler got the invite.
Okay. Yeah.
And
All right.
like, even if Grant or Malcolm wasn't actively pursuing her anymore, kind of thing,
Yeah. I will say that I got really tired of them bringing in the classical theme like every time we had a Grant Sattler Malcolm scene. Like I was pretty happy with it the first time. I was like, yay, the classic theme was back because the new characters are here. Movies do that, and then they just kept doing it. And
How
it,
many times
started
they
to
do
wear
it?
on me.
I only feel like I noticed it like twice or three times, maybe, and that didn't.
I'm pretty sure it's in there more than 3 times. I'd have to watch it back. Maybe it's just they did it 3 times, and by the 3rd time I was like, I'm an old man and I don't like to be reminded of the past. But
That's
don't
one
know,
thing from
like-
the past I'm happy to be reminded of, though.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like,
No,
I'm
Like,
yeah.
shit, man, I
Well,
want
that's
that shit right
why-
at my wedding and my funeral.
that's why I was fine with it the first time. But it's like it grates on me when they keep doing it because it's deliberately trying to pluck at the nostalgia strings. And that stuff has been just for movies in general in like the last 10 years has really started grating on my nerves. All the nostalgia baiting.
I think nostalgia baiting's always been there, just now
the,
we're
Yeah.
the
target.
pandering.
Yeah. And I thought overall this movie was pretty okay as far as that stuff goes. Like for this kind of
Right.
movie, which could have just been loaded and slathered in nostalgia and references, I thought it was restrained for what it was. I would have preferred it to be better, but I was not expecting it to be better. So yeah, I mean the musical cues I could have done with a little bit less.
Okay.
So yeah, we're at the part right now where then Sattler's introduced on like the farm with the locusts and everything. We get the horror scene of the locust swarm, and then the scene with Sattler checking it out. I like that some people I saw on Reddit describe this as Sattler's film, and I could see that, and I kind of like that.
A little bit, yeah.
She fucking earned it. She didn't get one like Grant and Malcolm did.
Yeah, I think over the years, my like of Sattler as a character has grown more as I appreciate her characterization a lot more. She's one of my favorite characters in the first film, I think now. Maybe second to like Muldoon, which is more of the classic guy I loved as a kid character. Hard to grow past the inner child nostalgia, but so I'm pretty happy seeing her still have a lot of agency and like take charge on a lot of stuff. I thought that was cool. I thought one thing I definitely would have liked them to not do in that scene, nothing connected with Sattler, but they immediately tell the audience that the locusts are Biosyn's fault by pointing out the thing with the Biosyn seed not getting eaten by the locust. It's very on the nose, and like I feel like that ties back into what I said earlier with Dodgson and Biosyn and keeping some of those reveals back for later. I think it would be much better if Sattler had suspicions for Biosyn and it wasn't so overt that.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah,
It's like yep, Biosyn's the bad guys.
Yeah. And then she's immediately like, Biosyn is it. I got to get in there. I got to get a sample from Biosyn to prove it. And I think it would be much more interesting if she was going to Biosyn to try and like find out if her suspicions were correct. And she wasn't so certain. And we as the audience had question marks as to whether or not, you know, Biosyn was responsible.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's part of the deleted stuff, but they had to trim it because this, what we've covered many times, this movie's so fucking bloated.
Yeah, it's very possible that some scenes in the film have been significantly moved around in edits or something, so who knows. But yeah, it just felt really weird to me that like the whole villain plot is literally laid out in the first 10 minutes. Like all of the plot reveals and stuff are broadly set up there, except for the retcons with Maisie that come up later, which is the closest thing we get to a reveal, which is very strange. Just in terms of the plot structure, I don't think it works just as a movie in general to do it that way. Yeah, I think what I would have liked is if the locusts were this like omnipresent threat, and like we had the world maybe a little bit closer to famine than it is currently, where it's like a growing threat. I think if the threat was established, it would work a lot better for like making the dinosaurs more of a threat. Like how did dinosaurs not just immediately get shot and killed? Well, because there was this growing threat of these engineered locusts, and the government's had to focus on that a little bit more. A little bit Planet of the Apesy in terms of how the new ones go, where the simian flu or whatever starts killing off the humans, so the humans aren't able to focus on the escaped apes, and the apes can multiply and build up.
I feel like that was the implication. They just did a terrible job of getting it across.
Yeah.
Like, cause I know there was just a throwaway bit in the middle of the movie where it's like, oh, the locusts have jumped continents now. Like it was there. They just did a piss poor job of implementing it.
Yeah, like if the movie would have started with like food shortages in the U.S., the U.S. completely distracted away from the dinosaurs and towards the locust, it could explain a lot of the dinosaurs going unchecked and spreading.
Ellie gets, a decent line trying to imply that too, though, of saying like we're, you're 3 meals away from anarchy kind of thing.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting too when Sattler then goes to Grant and they have their little reunion that we've got Sattler in a good place and Grant kind of in a bad place, which was interesting take on the characters. Sattler's lived out, her whole life of getting her kids and everything, and now she's back to just the science role, and Grant never left that and is less happy because of it. I thought it was kind of an interesting take on the character.
At least he's better with kids because he isn't like just done with the kids playing on their cell phones as he's trying to show them the fossil dig site.
I'm glad they didn't do Boomer Grant. hey, get off your phones. I'm trying to tell you something.
Right. Just put your phone in the basket before the talk begins.
Yes. He grabs a basket behind him, like
phones in.
Puts in front of each and every kid. Come back after class.
And yeah, I like the whole Sattler investigating Biosyn, but it really doesn't make any sense to me that we already have a Biosyn whistleblower in the form of the new character Ramsey, and Malcolm's there too. And like at that point, why is Sattler actually needed to reveal Biosyn? That doesn't really make much sense.
I think Ramsey was later on. I think
Yeah, that was a late.
Ramsey was revealed later on, but at this point
Yeah.
in the film,
Malcolm, I think, was the first sort of whistleblower.
Ramsey's the
His-
first. Ramsey's the first whistleblower.
Yeah, because he brings Malcolm in.
Yeah,
as
Ramsey-
the
Sure. Okay. All right.
Ramsey
Right.
brings Malcolm in, so Ramsey
Okay.
is the original source of the Biosyn
Okay.
leak.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't make any sense that they need to bring in Sattler to verify the Locust situation when they have a leaker who's like the number 2 person in Biosyn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's the more valuable witness coming directly from the company.
Yeah.
And so I had problems with that entire plot line once that reveal happens later in the film, that like Ramsey was on the inside the whole time, like halfway through or whatever.
I felt like that put a target on his head, like big time.
Yeah, it was just
Oh, yeah. I hated that scene where when he reveals to Dodgson, I'm like, I half expected Dodgson to pull a fucking gun on him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I expected him to pull out a gun or something.
novel
Like, that
Dodgson
was
would have
just
killed him.
nothing. Yeah, book Dodgson would have offed him right fucking there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that scene didn't really need to happen, but they want the confrontation scene, whatever.
Yep.
It would have been better in maybe like a different context or something. Maybe even like do integrate that with like the Dilo death scene for Dodgson and have that serve as like the distraction that gets Dodgson killed or something. I don't know. That's a spitball thing I just thought of. So, but yeah, like I don't see why Sattler is needed at all when they have Ramsey on the inside. The initial setup seems reasonable because Malcolm's like an outside agent. He doesn't have access to access to the labs really, so Sattler's got to come in and do some snooping too, sure. But once Ramsey's revealed, that entire plotline falls apart.
Did
in my
Malcolm give
mind.
him the key to the sub?
Yeah, he does, but like I don't know. Maybe he got it from Ramsey.
I mean, Ramsey gets him like to the tram.
yeah, and tells him where the elevators are and everything. But like,
Yeah.
I also like that there's like no
And I guess
security for like the secret Locust apocalypse lab. Like, there's cameras, but nobody's checking them apparently.
Yeah.
In a more expanded film, I feel like they could have chalked that up to because there's the one security guy, and he's like, "Oh, our camera, we missed it on cameras because of the other shit going on," and that could go into a bit of a Nedry thing, like of Dodgson making Hammond's exact same mistake, where he's putting all security on one guy, kind of thing.
Oh
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked there to be. I think I would have just liked it better if fucking Ramsey used his position to just loop the cameras or something, like they do in every spy movie.
I mean, he did end up doing some of that with unlocking the door while Malcolm was going through odd references, which I know that was corny, but I got a kick out of it. Like Miles Davis's birthday, beep beep beep. But
Yeah, I thought that was a good Malcolm scene. Just skipping ahead there because it came up, but I really liked the first thing he talks about is how many possible combinations there are, like an actual mathematician.
Yeah, that was a good book, Malcolm, like old school Malcolm.
Yeah.
I think Ramsey is implied good guy too early in the movie. When he gives
maybe
him the 30 minutes. I feel like they.
I thought that was a bit hokey that when Ramsey meets up with them again later, Sattler and Grant don't already realize he's on their side, because it seemed pretty damn explicit in their original conversation with him pointing him towards the elevators. It's like, he's clearly talking. He's clearly talking in veiled language. He's clearly on your side.
Yeah, he's winking at you.
Yeah, it's like for Sattler and Grant to not realize that when they meet back up with him is absurd.
I
don't like Sattler realized that, but yeah.
Yeah, but they've been through some shit in a very short amount of time.
I mean, I could see them playing coy and talking in veiled language, sure, but like for them to act legitimately surprised, that's just the part yeah, it's pretty minor. It doesn't really matter that much. My next note says blues show up. Too much Owen hand pose. Tired.
Yeah, that's just how you tame every fucking animal. I've seen this Crocodile Dundee sequel. That's how it works.
That way too much of that. I see people defending that too. It's like, well, it's just his instinctual action to do towards a carnivore. It's like
he did with the parasaur too.
Yeah, it's just the Owen pose. It's just his fucking trademark, which is why they do it. You could try and justify it, but it's there because it's his only character trait.
Yes, yes. He's
It got memed too much in the first movie, so
he's
they
Aquaman with
leaned into it.
dinosaurs.
And it's like, if they want to do the pose, whatever, do the pose. But the fact that it comes up like 7 times in this fucking movie,
Yeah.
it's way too much. It just every time there's a dinosaur, his fucking hand comes out. I'm like, God damn it.
I'm telling you, he just really likes Crocodile Dundee in the city. That's where it all comes from.
Also, the fact that it's supposed to apparently now represent like a head, and you like look through the gap in your hand for your eye, and then that makes the dinosaur like think it's a head or some shit is really stupid. Really fucking dumb. Like more dumb than it just being kind of a stop hand signal, which is fine for the context of Blue and the trained raptors only, of course, but
Right.
saying that it's some like display thing.
I mean, I guess it's nice that they had Blue kind of like, fuck you, get my kid back.
Yeah, give him a good nip. I appreciated that.
It
Like,
turned it
finally
around a
hit
little
him
bit
in the
the
ass.
first time.
It's kind of like the editing's a little weird on that when she nips at him, because it's not immediately obvious that he actually was bit. He just has a
Until you see
bandana
the
wrapped
bandage
around his
ring.
hand.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
But there's like no actual like injury scene.
They don't show you like him with a cut or anything.
Yeah, it just switches from him putting his hand down to his hand being wrapped in a bandana like 5 minutes later in a different scene. Felt really weird in terms of editing.
Yep, totally.
Yes.
Anything else about that scene?
I mean, I think we kind of covered that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not full anti-Owen. I'm
like the people that Owen is with, wrangling parasaurs, seem to be the same people that captured the beta, which it's very strange.
They're not supposed to be. Maybe the costumes are pretty similar.
I thought the one guy with the southern accent was
Well,
one
he
of
was.
them.
Oh,
he was
in the
watching.
tree line, with binoculars, watching him do that.
I thought he was one of the wranglers too, but maybe
I didn't see. I don't think that was.
I'd have to rewatch it. I don't think he
maybe
is supposed to be, but there could be some weird thing.
I'm
there.
almost certain it wasn't supposed to be. Maybe.
Yeah, because Owen's aware of him. Owen knows who he is. He's like a local poacher or whatever. So
okay.
Owen should know if he's there. But I assume that was the DFW rounding those paras up for transport or whatever.
All right.
And plainclothes rangers, especially in that kind of environment, is not like unheard of at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of DFW, I found it weird that everybody works for the CIA now. Why?
Everybody? I thought it was just Franklin.
It's not. If you watch that scene back slowly, which I did, the 2 control room people from Jurassic World also work for the CIA. You see him scroll through the agents or whatever when he's bringing up Barry's picture, and he goes through both Lowry and I think her name's like Vivian Krill or something.
Oh, they weren't in the room. They were just there.
Yeah.
Well, again, he says it though. He's like, pretty much everybody was scooped up by various,
Yeah, by CIA and intelligence agencies after the collapse of Jurassic World. But why? Following the collapse of Jurassic World, there's no dinosaurs in the wild. Why does the CIA give 2 shits about somebody who worked in the control room at Jurassic World? It only makes
what happened in Fallen Kingdom. They knew those were very valuable assets,
right?
And that people would try and get back after them.
They're valuable assets in terms of after Fallen Kingdom, not after the collapse of Jurassic World.
After Jurassic World, yeah. Like that's what I'm saying. Like because of the prologue in Fallen Kingdom, we know that people are trying to get on the island and get at that shit. We know that because of I know you didn't want to, but Camp Cretaceous. That this has long been something people have been after.
I guess I suppose it still feels weird to me that everybody works for the CIA instead of like the DFW or a more animal control centered agency.
And it's not everybody. It was just those 2 characters, and Franklin got hired. That's 3.
It's Franklin, Barry, Vivian, and Lowry. So it's 4 out of like 5 named side characters in Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom.
I just think that's it's definitely that's convenient, but it's also that one I don't mind as much because it's barely there. It's a blink and you miss it.
Yeah.
That one doesn't bother me.
All right, fair enough. It just opens. I don't know. It was weird to me, but yeah, it's pretty minor. Do you actually have to like look to see it? Because I had no idea they were there in those shots in the scene in the theater. Only when I rewatched it somewhere else did I slow it down and see those. Yeah, and then we get introduced to Biosyn Valley, the flight in. I believe this was Sattler's flight in with Grant.
Sattler and Grant,
yeah. Where they mentioned the first wave of dinosaurs in the sanctuary came from Isla Sorna, which is a mention that's only there for the fan base, which has been asking to know what the hell happened to Sorna for 3 movies now. And all it does is introduce more questions as to what happened to Sorna.
Right, yeah, exactly.
The non-film marketing lore says that Sorna was strip mined basically to make Jurassic World, and the rest of the dinosaurs died out or whatever, either before or after from starvation and ecosystem collapse. So did Biosyn have dinosaurs from Sorna like during the time frame of Jurassic World in the sanctuary? Or did dinosaurs actually survive on Sorna past that, and then in the post-Fallen Kingdom world, they took dinosaurs from Sorna? But if that's the case, why? Why take them off Sorna? And why were the dinosaurs from Nublar not transferred to Sorna if it actually was still a viable habitat? Like, I don't... It doesn't make any sense to me in, like, any time frame for there to be dinosaurs taken from Sorna to the Biosyn Sanctuary. I just don't see how that can fit into the timeline.
I'm on the side of they did it before Jurassic World.
But then it feels like it should be secret.
Well, yeah, but I think it was secret until the dinosaurs got loose. Like,
and then they're just like, we did corporate espionage back in 2014, whatever. It's fine.
Way before that. I assume Dodgson still did Dodgson things, and actually somewhere between 3 and Jurassic World is where Dodgson went novel and went on there and got himself a couple Myosaur eggs kind of things.
Which I'm good with. I just don't know why they're telling outsiders that as they fly into the valley. I don't know why they're just introducing people to the fact that they committed espionage in the early 2000s on the inbound flight.
It was Grant and Sattler, and they didn't give him a timeline for it, so I'm not quite... And it was Ramsey that says this.
Yeah. You know what? That's a fair point. That actually could be him literally telling them we have committed espionage. I didn't consider that.
But also, that being said, without more context, without like deleted lines or like the actual script including more to that scene, that could be either an oversight or like they accidentally just lucked into something where someone who knows the lore a little decent like me caught or read into it as such. Might not have been intentional, but it does.
I doubt it was, but it's a good excuse.
Yeah, it felt like sloppy script writing just to get a reference to Sorna in there, but it actually does kind of work because it's Ramsey.
I'm very much thinking it was that. They just accidentally have a decent way to blow it off.
Yep.
Yeah,
unless we get some good deleted scenes, and like Ramsey had a lot more exposition dumps where it's like, man, this guy is giving out some major information. Like, why? Like he's telling him about the dinosaur control system, which
Ramsey's got some loose lips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not like. I don't like throwing this term around because I think it's bullshit, because I've done it my whole life and I've never considered it from this angle. But where Ramsey does basically the mansplaining of the electricity on the fences in Jurassic Park.
I wouldn't really consider that. Wasn't that in response to Grant's concerns too?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like he goes to Grant and Sattler, and his question is, did you know how much electricity was in the fences in Jurassic Park? And they're getting like incredulous. Yeah, like it should have been. I feel like the line just should have been tweaked to be, do you remember what the voltage was on those fences?
Well, I take it as his counterpoint to Grant's concerns about animal welfare.
The cruelty of shocking, yeah.
It's not that he's legitimately, it's a rhetorical question. He's not actually asking like anything about what the power was. His point was that he knows they know what the power levels were in the fences. And he's saying it's kind of the same thing.
I thought it was kind of just speaking down to them in a.
I didn't take it that way, but also the script is sloppy enough that maybe it was supposed to be taken that way. There's a few instances of that, of like where me and Marta, my girlfriend, had different takes on some lines.
Fair.
One of which I liked, and she thought was awful, but I think it was intentionally awful, very much so.
Which one's that?
That's one of Dodgson's lines when when the control room or whatever finds out that Grant and Sattler are trapped in the Hyperloop or whatever, and Dodgson's like, "Oh no." That's very much him being a bad actor intentionally, because he did that.
Yeah.
It's his,
Fully, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That also might be slight like language barrier things, and also the movie being, if the movie has instances of some really bad dialogue, it's hard to know when it's intentionally being bad as a character moment. So, but yeah, I like that line, but I thought it was really funny. I'm gonna skip some of my notes here because we've kind of covered them. I think my next significant note is that third wheel Alan is kind of a funny take on the character as well. I thought it was interesting because you get, like, Grant has no jealousy in regards to Malcolm and Sattler in the original film, which I thought was great.
I felt like that
a
was
little bit. There's a little bit.
Yeah, he's defensive of it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think that's because they're actively in a relationship at that time.
He's defensive.
He's like, she.
Yes,
he's. Grant's like, no.
He's defensive about it towards Malcolm when Malcolm starts talking about Sattler. But when Malcolm's flirting with Sattler in the car earlier, Grant's not concerned because he trusts Sattler. He knows she's not going to, like, cheat on him or anything with Malcolm, so he doesn't give a shit. It's only when Malcolm brings up directly, man to man, that's when he, like, you know, the testosterone comes out a little bit.
That's when they're on the tour, though.
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit more preoccupied at that point.
Yeah, but I also think that Grant Sattler had a really nice casual relationship vibe to them.
Yeah.
Where they were just a mature couple that wasn't, you know,
right.
No relationship drama, not even a slight whiff of it there, really. And I think it's interesting, since, you know, the relationship did fall apart, to actually see Grant seem a little jealous now towards Malcolm interacting with Sattler. I thought that was a decent little bit of character work.
Yeah. Like, he sees this new window to rekindle something he vastly misses, and all of a sudden, god damn it, this guy who was already confirmed showing interest in her back in the day has just suddenly been thrown back in the mix together. And no, I did, like I said, that's just more of me enjoying the alumni, knowing their characters, and doing a good job of portraying that, even if the script was a little mess sometimes.
Yeah, that was definitely some good stuff. It's like informed by the previous interactions between the characters without just repeating it, which is great.
All right, next point.
So then we get to the first scene, I think, with Dr. Wu in the lab, talking about the locust with Dodgson. This brought up a lot of questions in my mind as to what Dodgson's goals precisely are. Because Dodgson has an interest in getting Maisie, but he also wants the locust to continue to exist. He doesn't want to kill the locust. That's said explicitly in that scene. So I don't understand why he supports Wu getting Maisie, when the whole point of getting Maisie is to make a virus to re-engineer the locusts in the field and kill them off. That seems completely counter to what Dodgson's stated goals are. Like, the whole point of the locust is to push Biosyn seed so that Biosyn can control the agriculture of the planet or whatever. And to that end, Dodgson's actions are consistent. He doesn't want the locust killed. So I guess the argument you can make is that he wants Maisie because the viral recombination technology is useful, and so he's willing to entertain Wu with the intention of never actually letting Wu go through with poisoning the locusts. Well, not literally poisoning, with re-engineering the locusts. And I think that would be a consistent Dodgson character trait, you know, to lead Wu along, but it's never made clear in the film, which is maybe sloppy.
I also think it's just Dodgson showing more of his avarice. Maisie is a commodity, and he wants it.
Yeah, it feels like it should be made more clear, because if you take the film very literal, it appears that Dodgson is simultaneously pushing for and pushing for not killing the locusts, which is completely counter.
I guess I didn't ever get that. I also kind of figured that he didn't realize Wu's full, like, plans, and like him having just an oversight of not realizing, kind of with the Ramsey thing, and obviously with Wu to more extent, he doesn't realize what these people under him are doing. Like, he's not taking that in and evaluating. He's just completely trusting of them. And that's where I've got the implications that he's been working with Wu for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like, he can't perceive Wu possibly going against him, undermining him. Like, he just doesn't, like, there's no way Wu would do this.
That's true.
Can't see it.
With the character interactions, Dachshund does really act like he's got Wu completely under his thumb. He does act like a person who knows that he like can get this person to do whatever he wants him to do. It's just weird to me that Wu explicitly says, we should kill the locust, and Dachshund says no, but then Dachshund is like, let's get Maisie, when, the whole motivation there is to kill the locust. Just that just doesn't feel right the way it's presented. But it can all be subtext of like, Dodson being Dodson. But I just feel like you need that to be, especially with how like on the nose a lot of stuff in the film is, for that to be really subtle is weird, basically.
Well, I think they had their stuff where they wanted to be subtle, but again, I want to see these 15 minutes of deleted scenes.
Right.
Did Wu's sort of remorse come across as a little weird?
It's not done well, but I like the direction they take the character, so I kind of forgive it.
I think they saved it a little bit by him sort of still trying to like solve his problems through his own mad science.
It's kind of like how I feel about Claire. Like, you get a sense for how the character developed between the movies, and it seems like good character development that happened off screen, so I can kind of forgive. It's dumb that like all the major character development for both Claire and Wu happens off screen, but like I like where the characters move, so I kind of forgive it. It's bad filmmaking, but
I think Claire's development is actually through the film, whereas Wu is, the quote unquote bad guy for 2 of the movies, and then the third one he's all of a sudden. When
I talk about Claire, I'm talking about the transition from Jurassic World to Fallen Kingdom, not with this film.
Yeah.
And I'd say, sadly, the transition for Wu kind of, a lot of it's in the Evolution games.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
And I mean, what you're talking about between movies, I think that's where some of it happens. Like, because the Evolution games, as I understand, they're considered canon, right?
I don't know about that. So parts of that explicitly aren't. So.
Oh, see, I thought maybe the hybrid stuff was, like, not you building a park like this and doing on all the little islands, but like the character stuff, like the stuff where they got the voice actors in there. I thought that was all.
I wouldn't go that far. Maybe soft canon, where certain ideas presented are interpretations of canonical ideas and character moments. But
yeah, and that's what I'm going for. Like in the first one explicitly, where we have Wu's hybrids and Claire's sanctuary.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you get those character snapshots in the progression from World to Fallen Kingdom to this. I mean, in World, he's like fully into himself and very pompous. But by the time you get to Fallen Kingdom, he's being fairly desperate and taking these big risks to kind of like reclaim his glory. And then I think the transition to like defeated Wu looking to like undo the things he's caused, I think that works as a 3-film character arc. Okay. It's just the transition steps are where the big character work is done, and they all happen between movies.
But you can see like how much remorse. I was fine with his remorse of the locusts. Like he realized he really went too far this time.
But I thought his performance as somebody who is like defeated and really regretting his actions was pretty good. I do
forget a lot of his characterization in Fallen Kingdom, so maybe there was some sort of progress in that point. So
in Fallen Kingdom he has like exactly what Garrett was saying. Continue. Okay.
No, that's all I need to get out there is like he isn't just completely complicit in everything that's happening in Fallen Kingdom, and he is starting to see like, and you point out I wasn't even thinking about the desperate side. That is a good part of it too. I just seen him being like, okay, you guys are terrible. Like, I'm bad, but you guys are fucking horrendous with this fucking greed and money grubbing for the dinosaur shit.
Yeah, Fallen Kingdom Wu is like a man who wants to reclaim his past glory, knows he needs money and resources to do it, and gets in bed with some very bad people, and then realizes that he's fucked up when they start to like do the Indoraptor auction, because he's very much against that in the film, and that's kind of, I think, the turning point where he starts to realize that like his goals are never. He's never going to be able to achieve his goals the way he wants to. It's just everybody's going to try and exploit his work.
Right. So
Okay.
let's see. Next point, because we are running a little short on time.
We can go for a little longer. We don't have to transition to arc right
Yeah,
away.
we're fine. Yeah.
All right.
Then we get to the Malta sequence. There's a lot to potentially unpack there. That's the kind of sequence we're combing it over with a fine-tooth comb or enlarging every shot will probably reveal a lot of interesting details. I thought the Dimorphodons being treated like parrots in a few cases, like people with Dimorphodons on their shoulders and shit, was pretty fun. I thought that was neat. I liked it. The Barry with a mechanical prosthesis was stupid.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, the Baryonyx, the juvenile one in the fighting ring, has a mechanical arm, which makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah, it's like not like a cybernetic arm, but like a mechanical prosthesis, which an animal can't use because it serves no purpose. An animal can use a prosthetic limb, like a leg, to support its weight. That works. We do that with like elephants and stuff. But a manipulating digit, arm, limb, whatever, that doesn't really work because it's just a big lump of dead metal, and an animal doesn't know how to like actually make any use of that.
That's fucking stupid. See, my issue with that Barry was like I was happy to see a young Barry, but the fact that he was the one that kills off the poacher by eating his head like that.
That scene was so bad.
Yeah, I hated the little Carno. Again, we get a little baby Carno and a baby
fucking
L.
adorable.
Yeah, like those were wonderful. And then like the Carno's like, no, I'm gonna eat a whole arm and just keep eating and just keep eating. Like these aren't bass. These aren't northern pike.
Yeah.
They don't swallow until they can't swallow anymore. They're not fucking fish.
And then the actor's performance while he's being devoured is fucking awful. He's just like fairly calmly responding to an interrogation while he's literally being eaten alive.
Like getting his arm eaten, but yeah, the Wistro's tugging at his sleeve.
Yeah, it's like but you see the Carno like fucking Pac-Manning up his arm further and further. It's just like, how is this man calm right now? Relatively calm.
Yeah, like they played that scene for laughs, like.
Yeah, well, it's just so
tonally just so strange.
Yeah, it very very cheesy and then the Baryonyx comes out and like bites the dude in the head, and then Owen Grady just turns a little bit and like gets on the radio.
So cool. Yeah, he's just cool. Like
he's
like,
just
he was under no danger whatsoever.
There's literally two carnivores, one of which is completely loose, tearing a dude apart like 1 foot from you, and you're just calmly on the radio.
Yep.
What happened to the Allo and the Carno that were rampaging? They're also like in that same room, I think. It's just like
in awe of Owen's plot armor, I'm sure.
It's so like schlocky action movie nonsense at that point. That was really bad.
There's just a proximity around Owen that turns everything into shitty action flick.
Yeah, and it's only him too. It's like there's not really any shitty action flick stuff that happens with any of the other characters. It's just Owen. The characters around Owen at that moment.
Yes.
I thought the Malta scene too is where some of the animatronics started to look a little janky for me. It's really nice to see a lot of animatronic work back, but I think some of it wasn't up to par, in my opinion.
Like which ones were bothering you?
The Compies and the Microceratus, I thought both looked really stiff.
Oh yeah, the Compies, yeah. Agreed. I remember the head sticking out of the cage there.
Yeah, I think every time the Microceratus shows up, like in the video's a little bit better because at least you can see some like eye movement and stuff. But I thought those two dinosaurs stood out to me. I thought the Dimorphodons and stuff looked good. I don't know if there was an animatronic Dimorphodon. I don't even know where it showed up, so it's pretty good.
It's probably one of the shoulder ones.
Probably.
Oh, speaking of the Microceratus video, that actually bothered me because like the forearm on that person that Maisie's head was put on looked like a middle-aged man or something.
I didn't notice that.
I did. Like, I just kept noticing him pet it, and it was like, it's like, fucking A, I'm having a Seinfeld moment. She's got man hands.
I'll have to watch that back. That's an interesting sequence. Both good and bad.
Right.
We could talk about that right now, slightly out of sequence, but 1986 is the date on that video. which makes Microceratus one of the first InGen clones, despite it not being in Jurassic Park in film canon. I thought that was curious.
Well, I mean, isn't that kind of I thought there was Microceratops in Jurassic Park though.
Not in film canon, only in the novel.
Well, so
I'm kind of wondering if it's a soft retcon, potentially, to say Microceratus was in the park, because we do have a list of 15 dinosaurs that were in the original park, probably, but it's not exactly settled. There's room for retcons there very easily, because a lot of that isn't in the film.
And that's a very soft retcon. That
Very soft, yes.
anything.
I like it, actually, because the original park needs more goddamn herbivores. It's like 5 herbivores in film, JP. For some reason, when they made the brochure map, which is where most of the species list comes from, they just filled it up with carnivores. A lot of like really redundant carnivores too. It's very strange. A lot of small ones. So yeah, I'm totally on board with it if they want to retcon Microceratus to be an original JP species, especially because it was in the novel.
Right. But so yeah, back to Malta.
Still in Malta, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I've seen more than one comparison to the Mos Eisley Cantina or Jabba's Palace.
Yeah, I mean, Malta's a real place, so it's probably more that Jabba's Palace / Mos Eisley Cantina reference. That sort of
I think it's just
North African, Middle Eastern market vibe.
The composition of everything. Like, look, all this weird shit going on. To cut, a shot of this thing and shot of that.
True.
Thing,
That's just kind of the marketplace vibe, I suppose.
Well, the black marketplace exclusive.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was a very bold, creative choice. I'm being sarcastic right now to bring back the laser targeting system that everybody hated from Fallen Kingdom.
Oh yeah.
And then use it even more.
Yeah, but they had to have their new evil raptor pack, so...
Which I liked generally seeing aggressive raptors again. I thought that was fine.
Oh yeah, but the laser targeting was just... And oh my god.
And also, worst character in the film, that girl with the laser targeter. Holy shit. She belongs in an entirely different movie.
Well, her and the poacher. Like, they're just poor acting, poor characterization, just like, we're here to be plot contrivances and move things along and make the chase go further.
Yep.
And it just... Yeah.
Just like the fact that as soon as the gunfight starts, she just calmly walks out of frame mid-gun battle, was immediately me going like, this is going to be an awful character. This is going to be bad. And then the fact that she managed the laser, like, I think she uses her laser maybe 4 times in 4 different scenarios where she's like caught by somebody. It's like, take her fucking laser away.
Right, she's not armed.
What the fuck? Yeah, cheesy as fuck when she walked away from the gunfight. I think she's the worst character in the film, which is kind of surprising because I actually thought most of the new characters were pretty good. Just not that one. The poacher guy is such a minor character, I don't really count him as a character so much. Rain Delacourt, I think his name, something like that. I'm pretty sure his first name is Rain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hated her. Then we get Owen fucking hand signing at Carno and Aloe at some point. Terrible. Poacher scene, we already covered that. Super goofy. I think I laughed out loud at that in a bad way when the Carno and the Listro started biting him.
Yeah. I don't think I laughed, but I was like this. Yeah, we've already covered that. We're good.
Yep. Covered the Owen standing there. Yep. Oh, and then when her name is like Sonoya Santos or something, I'm just gonna call her Santos, where she gets tagged by the Dino Taser, and then just gets back up and says, "You don't use it on people." I was like, "What fucking kind of line is that?" You don't use it on people because it's super dangerous, despite the fact that you just got tased and immediately stood up afterwards. So clearly, it's not dangerous. What?
I have no idea either. That I'm with you completely on hating her.
That's awful.
She's too. She's like, okay, no, she's the nega Owen. Like, she has the aura of, like, she just gets to shake off everything. And
that's it. You're right. She's evil Owen.
And she has the her own pack of raptors. Christ, I didn't realize.
Holy shit, you're right. Oh my god, it is. She is just evil version of Owen. Yeah. I didn't think about that either.
She's the turn to the dark side Owen, weaponizes the Raptors, has action movie everything a circumference around her. Ah, wow.
Shit.
God, I can't believe that's got to be what they were going for. That's
Yeah.
the only way you redeem that character is by her being like all the complaints about Owen, but turned into a bad guy.
That's absolutely what their character concept was. They're like, what if Owen was a bad guy and a girl? And just went from there. 100%. Oh man, I thought the chase was really fun though.
I was fine
I did too.
mostly in the city, but when they're going across, like, who knows how far out into the outside of the city Owen had to have gotten on that bike. And Raptors, the cheetah things are still hot on his tail, still gaining, still catching up and biting. I
don't count the ending of the chase as being part of the good part of the chase.
That's fair.
It's more Owen action movie schlock when he fucking jumps into the plane and shit.
But even that was where they're like, hey, Fast and Furious isn't actually going to cross over with Jurassic World, so here's what our Fast and Furious moment. But even in the city though, like the stamina on those things is so ungoddamn believable to me.
I mean, I think my favorite part of the chase is the indoor stuff at the very start with Claire, where she's like slamming doors and like dodging down hallways while the Raptor like busts through doors and stuff.
That's awesome.
I thought it was really well filmed actually too. Some really good like camera shots as it moved through areas.
Yeah. I she's a little bit too much actiony for her character.
But she's still close to Owen then.
So I think they do it.
Yeah, she's in Owen's like action radius. His aura effect is applying.
Like when she barely makes that jump, like I think she recovered too quickly from that.
A bit.
Yeah.
The sequence worked for me, so it's another case of where I'm willing to like suspend disbelief a little bit more. Yeah, it was enjoyable. I thought the motorbike versus Raptors was. It's not quite like a Sorna Lost World reference to the novel because the dynamic is different. It's not the motorbike chasing the Raptors. It's the Raptors chasing the motorbike, but it still had a little bit of a vibe of that novel sequence in there. So I appreciated that aspect of things too.
I'll try and give you a little bit of that, but I you know what? Now that you bring it up though, I'm still mad to this day that we never got Arby.
Right.
Like all these films and we never got an Arby. Like, man.
Yeah, the character choices they made for Lost World are still rather inexplicable. Like inventing Nick Van Owen and deleting half the characters from the novel is weird.
Yeah.
Again, not discussing that film. So
no, we're already. What are we on now? Because overall Malta not a good part of the movie. Just not a good.
The scooter guy getting eaten took me out of the chase a little bit.
Yeah, okay, so that was like a contest thing. There was some fucking contest for somebody to get eaten by a dinosaur in the film, and that's who the guy is on the scooter.
That's so stupid.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. It was really funny when I made it the thumbnail for my trailer reaction video, me getting eaten by the dinosaur. That was great. Oh man. But that's all that's great for.
That's the worst thing. That's the worst spot for
that. It's very weird and jarring and strange. He's got AirPods in, he can't hear the dinosaurs coming.
I'm sure people have talked about this ad nauseum since the trailer came out for that with that scene, but oh my god, like what the fuck was that guy thinking?
yeah, it's just one of like a dozen scenes in the film that are really schlocky.
Yeah.
I like Kayla, the pilot. I think she's a good additional character.
Yeah, she hasn't heard anything. I was fine with her.
Yeah, she's like got a distinct. She actually has a character a bit, which is good. She's not just a person. She's got a little bit of attitude and.
She's Han Solo-y.
Yeah, a bit.
She finally sees something that she can't just completely look away from, and what from her viewpoint, it looks like a kidnapping or human trafficking exchange, and she grows enough of a conscience to pitch in. I was fine with all that.
Yeah. So I think she's a solid character addition to the franchise, but probably better than better character than like Franklin and Zia. Feels like more of a character, a little bit more to do, and more of her own agency as a character too.
Yeah.
I thought the introduction to the Moros, getting back to out of Malta now fully and getting into Biosin Valley again. I thought introducing the Moros in the little like animal habitat, I thought that looked pretty cool. It eating the rat and everything.
Yeah.
Moros looked like a solid design. It's really undersized, but it can be a juvenile. So as long as they don't keep having Moros be tiny babies for the entire franchise, I don't find that to be an issue.
Bold of you to assume that we'll get more franchise and Moros will be included.
I mean, they said the franchise isn't over. This is just the end of the trilogy.
Well, we know the franchise isn't over,
Yeah.
but I hope it's going to be well over another decade before we go into a film version of this.
Mhm.
I'd like to have more stuff that's like not Camp Cretaceous explicitly, but more stuff like that, smaller scale. The dinosaurs are out there now. It's just,
Yeah, I'd like a different creative team to take over now. We've had our action schlock trilogy. Can we get something a little more Spielbergian, maybe?
Can we get a proper horror movie in this now?
Or that.
I'm down with that. Let's get an alien, but with a raptor.
Yeah. All right, I think now we get to one of the bigger sticking points I had again, which is all the retconning of Maisie's backstory and the discussion of Charlotte Lockwood. I got a lot of notes on this. It doesn't make much sense. If you go to the Jurassic Park Reddit right now, there's like half the threads on the top end of the page are people going like, what the fuck is this retcon and how does this make any sense in the timeline? So the retcon is basically that Maisie was cloned by Charlotte, who is herself, because Charlotte wanted a kid. And Maisie's of interest in this film because it turned out that Charlotte/Maisie had a genetic disorder, and Charlotte figured out how to fix it, fixed Maisie, couldn't fix herself for some reason.
Yeah,
maybe the disease was too advanced, whatever.
Gee, that's convenient.
Yeah, and then Lockwood covers for Charlotte's self-fertilization by saying that he cloned her to replace his dead daughter who died in a car crash. It's very strange. It makes no sense. And I don't think it even adds anything really to the film to rewrite Maisie's backstory. It just makes things similarly confusing. The Lockwood Hammond thing was always kind of weird because Maisie was not like 20 years old. She was a kid and Hammond was dead. So the whole thing with Hammond and Lockwood having a fallout over human cloning never worked because Hammond was dead before Maisie was ever cloned. So the only way that kind of works is to go back in time and say that Lockwood always was interested in human cloning, which kind of works in that context. Like if his daughter had died, say in like 1990 or something, right? And then Lockwood immediately wanted to use the cloning technology to bring his daughter back. And it just took him, 15 years after that to actually perfect the technology. Then it works. He can have a falling out with Hammond early on because he wants to, move the cloning in a different direction. But that doesn't work in this context because we see that Charlotte's alive until 2007 and Hammond dies in presumably 1997 or in the late 90s sometime at the latest. So that's almost impossible to explain.
Pretty terrible. It was... Yeah, it's just all fucking... Gee, that's convenient.
It's terrible kind of in every aspect too, because if Charlotte really wanted to have a kid, there's a lot easier ways to have one than to self-fertilize yourself with your own clone. You could just go out and get cum. It's readily available. Even like in vitro fertilization, like let's talk about this in a non-crude way. It's really easy to go get IVF if you're a rich lady, right? So why was she so driven to clone herself?
Well, that one does go to classic Malcolm line of so preoccupied with whether or not she could.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can say that like all the reassurance Maisie's given that Charlotte actually really wanted to have a kid and that Maisie was loved is bullshit, maybe. And Charlotte wanted a kid but wanted a clone more, and people are just being nice to Maisie. That's about the only way you can make at least Charlotte's motivation make any sense.
Yeah,
unfortunate for Maisie, but
I gave up on that. Like, it's just a contrived plot bullshit because she has to be important to Wu for reasons that Wu still needed her, and not just like he would have lost his samples when he bailed on Lockwood Estate.
Yeah.
But like he would have had so much time. At least that makes sense with him wanting to have had studied her. But that only works for Wu and Maisie. That doesn't include this. Now he had this, not crush, but like had this worshiping, like put Charlotte on a pedestal thing,
Mhm.
and that she was so much better and his superior and things like that. And I just
Yeah,
I want to wash my hands of the whole thing.
the whole thing just almost every aspect of that entire plot line is problematic. Like, what good is Maisie's genome? It's been fixed. What has happened is a virus went in, took out the problematic gene, replaced it with the correct normal human gene. The virus presumably is gone. The virus is the thing we would want, because the virus is what does the work. That's the novel thing, not the gene from Maisie's genome, which is just a normal functional gene you could find from any human who doesn't have the disorder. It all they have to do is throw some stupid fucking line of saying that the virus is still active in her body and they need the samples of the active virus or some shit, and then it works. But saying they need her genome is nonsense, because it's just a corrected human genome. It's probably just examples of movie writers don't know how biology works, and this movie very much assumes the audience is stupid as well, so they don't want to make things too complicated for the dummies.
For those dummies, I am offended.
Yeah, it's just weird. What else did I have here for notes? Why didn't Charlotte fix herself? Not explained. It's one of the first things that popped into my head. But whatever, maybe it was too advanced. You can explain it. But again, you're jumping through hoops to explain, to justify the things that happen in the movie using information not in the movie. Like, it's just weird. I have it written here in all caps again. I still don't get what use beta is to woo. Why?
The virus didn't seem degenerative.
Well, we couldn't really tell from the little bit they gave of us, because what were the last two videos we got of her, like 06 and 07?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, she knew about the virus. She
gets, there's the pregnant video, which I think is like 2007. She has the baby and is sick.
Having the virus.
She doesn't know she has the virus until after the baby's born, or has the disorder until after the baby's born. She has like a genetic disorder, not a virus. The virus is used to correct the genetic disorder.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah. So then Ellen and Ellie go play spies, which is a bit meh. It seemed really easy for them to get into the top secret espionage apocalypse, destroy the planet's crop supply lab. It was just there was one camera guarding it and one keypad. Like, whatever. Movies.
There's cameras in the thing, right?
There's like one camera feed they show Dodgson later on.
Like
nobody was watching.
One outside the door, and then one in the actual room.
Sure.
I think
doesn't really change it that much.
I didn't know, not really. Just
point is, they had outside visitors to the complex, and nobody
security. Yes.
Yeah, nobody was watching like the thing that would ruin them. Especially in the moment when like the locusts are spreading all over the planet, and there's gonna be a lot of attention on that.
They were very effectively disguised.
They should have just had a dude standing there by the locust with his hand on the burn all the locust button, right, just in case shit happened. Because
no, they can't do that, because I mean, look how it turned out.
Because movie, yeah, the whole movie is like riddled with insane plot contrivances. To like that's part. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. That's part of why all the Maisie stuff is so janky and doesn't make any sense. Is because it's all there is like. They started this movie from the point of view of, we're going to have these characters in the film. Owen's going to be here. Claire's going to be here. Maisie's going to be here. Grant, Sattler, and Malcolm are going to be here. And they're all going to meet up. And that was their starting point, was how do we get these characters to meet up? They didn't start with some overarching plot and figure out how to put the characters into it. And they very clearly structure the film around getting the characters to meet up. And it comes up again and again and again. These like confusing situations and circumstances to achieve that, and these like really contrived moments to get them together. And yeah, I think that's the source of a lot of the really weird issues with the plot. Mm-hmm. Maisie does her escape scene or whatever because nobody's looking at her at the moment, so she can just run away, which is funny. It's like literally Wu and Dodgson turn their backs and she's just able to book it, release a raptor, and run away.
Yeah.
She's very resourceful, Maisie.
Yeah, it's
and very much not like. I feel like she'd be more afraid than she was. She just totally, like, no-sold everything.
Yeah. It's Owen rubbing off on her, I guess.
Yeah, must have been. Must have been.
Oh, then Wu just has like a presentation on his PC about killing the locust that he can just bring up. I don't remember the exact context of that scene, but that's in my notes. I guess you can explain that away, that he, made this presentation to show Dodgson early on, be like, look, we can get rid of the locust problem that we cause. And Dodgson was like, yeah, that's very nice work. No. Very strange, though.
I mean, that part makes a little sense to me, or well, simultaneously does and doesn't, because it turns into another lysine contingency.
Yeah.
Like you would think Wu would have already had that. Well, no, never mind. That's right, because Dumbass did say he's like, we expected them to be a lot weaker and not breed like this. So.
Yeah, so I guess the original point of the locust program was to like breed these super locusts to decimate a bunch of crops temporarily, which boosts biosyn seed sales. Everybody starts using biosyn seed, the locusts die off, and then everybody still uses biosyn seed out of paranoia or whatever. Or the locusts are a low-scale persistent threat that causes people to keep using biosyn seed, and they're not supposed to be this globally devastating threat.
Right, but Wu has still not learned lessons from 30 years ago, so.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that, he's now working directly for Biosyn, which is a company that's not going to be super concerned about doing things the correct way.
Yep, have even less oversight and moral care than Hammond's.
It's also entirely possible that the Wu was just told that they were supposed to die off. The context of the film seems like it was an accident, but maybe it was a deliberate thing Dodgson had somebody else do to the locusts after Wu worked on them. Who knows?
Possibly, yeah.
But yeah. And then Maisie just immediately finds Grant and Sattler. Because apparently the secret labs are 3 rooms in a hallway. So there's literally nowhere else she could go except to the locust lab. Yeah, just immediately
recognize them.
I like that she recognized them. I think that's reasonable.
I don't. It seems to come from nowhere.
Grant and Sattler should be celebrities in this world after Jurassic Park leaks.
I suppose. Grant, I feel
after the Lost World. I mean, that is part of. I feel because remember, 3 starts off with Grant giving a full fucking lecture hall.
Right.
Yeah.
And only people stick through his entire paleontological spiel until he says, "I'm not answering Jurassic Park questions."
But we established that Grant was kind of, in a lesser state of,
But it's established in Fallen Kingdom that Maisie has an interest in the park in the past there.
Okay.
Yep.
So it makes sense for her to know who Grant and Sattler are.
That's fair then. Okay.
Yeah. And I just like when movies don't feel the need to have the characters continuously introduce themselves to each other when there's a reasonable chance they should know each other. So I like that they just did it that way. Then we get the plane flying in and the Quetzalcoatlus, which is a solid design. One of my questions I have written down here is, why is it the same color as the Lost World Pteranodons? And by extension, why are the Atrociraptors the same color as the Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 raptors? Kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's a good color scheme.
I consider that just callbacks. Again, it's Barbasol can stuff. I'm cool with it. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
It's weird that there's marketing for the Atrociraptors that says that they were potentially bred from Sornoraptors, which is why they have the same color scheme. But then in the film, they explicitly describe the Atrociraptors as purebreds.
Oh,
which
I
is
didn't see that part.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that
when they're
also-
first introduced. She describes them as like
could be
4 purebred
her.
Atrociraptors.
But she's trying to make a sale. too.
True, yeah, could also be bullshit. I don't like how many character lines we're saying, oh, but it could be bullshit in the context of the film. That's being used as an excuse way too much. It's plausible in every case we're bringing it up, but the fact that we have to bring it up so many times is, again, bad script writing.
Yep.
And then the Quetz just spears the plane with its beak, which I feel like it should have broke its fucking beak.
Yeah, to do a whole plane like that, definitely.
Yeah, it's not a can opener. It's a pterosaur. It's a living organism.
No, don't you know? But they had fish that were covered with bony, like they clearly spilled Dunkleestes, so they could do this. Definitely, yeah, sure.
But big movie set piece, I guess. Whatever. The ejection scene is very amusing in retrospect because Claire is the one who is given the ejection seat ostensibly because it gives her the best chance to survive, and she has the whole like scene with Owen where he's like, "You got to go find our kid," and then the plane crashes, and Owen and Kayla don't even have a goddamn scratch on them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
I
Claire,
noticed that.
yeah, they don't even have a scuff on them. They're completely clean when they get on that plane. Meanwhile, Claire is dumped into the dinosaur-infested swamp and has the worst fucking time. It's like if she would have just stayed on the plane, it would have been fine.
I guess, and this one might be like a reshoots kind of thing, is my thought there, because I didn't notice that in retrospect. But if they, in like the original run, they all ended up in the swamp, and or something like that elsewise, and I can't remember her name, but Owen and the pilot, if they ended up there by like walking, like they just walked out there somehow. Like, because the more I think about it, I don't feel like you could really see the plane anymore after they get a little ways away from it. Like I can't think of any shots where I remember it being like significant. Like that's why why the ice was cracking, and conceivably with a plane going down the middle, as frail as that ice was, the waves from that plane going in should have fractured almost the entire ice field there.
Yeah.
Like, they shouldn't have been able to walk on any of that. They should have had to swim for shore.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it's either a reshoot thing, or it was when it was conceptualized as the sequence of getting them on an ice sheet with a Pyroraptor around them, there was a whole different setup, and they changed it.
It could be. It's a bad sequence.
Oh yeah, terrible sequence.
Why is the Pyroraptor there? What does it eat? Who let it be there? It's in the dam above the valley in the hill. Like, why?
You couldn't tell it was a cormorant or a penguin. Like, obviously, the Pyroraptor.
What a weird design choice to do. Like, there's literally semi-aquatic raptors. I forget what they're called. They're like the Hell's blah blah blahs, something like that. They're like fisher raptors, kind of, with like narrower snouts. Unanlagia maybe are like that too. I don't remember that branch of the family tree very well. But why pick a Pyroraptor? It's also like, is it a deliberate like juxtaposition to have your fiery red fire thief Pyroraptor, literally its name means fire thief, and then make it like do a bunch of water stuff? I mean, that's probably a deliberate irony on the part of the filmmakers, but it's so weird to do.
I can't imagine they thought that far.
I don't know. Just strange. I like that when it jumps out of the water, it does a little flat bit. And that's about all I liked. It's also, it's again, it just reeks of a set piece, and a dinosaur is here now. Like,
yeah. Gee, that's convenient.
And also a case of cold weather not affecting the characters one bit.
Yeah, like short sleeves, fell into a frozen lake is fine.
Yep.
Not even a bit of frost on that boy.
Just a little wet in cold weather, totally.
Yeah.
Affected one bit.
Bad sequence. Being that was one of like the big feathery dinosaurs they pushed in marketing, it's pretty disappointing. But then we get to I felt a much less disappointing feathery dinosaur sequence, which is the whole Therizinosaurus scene.
What?
You didn't like it?
I didn't mind the Therizino design. I don't mind the Therizino being territorial, but oh my god, the bitch slap on the fucking deer.
I didn't like that part of it.
That ruined the whole sequence for me. And
okay,
that's the whole problem. Like, okay, so he just walks up on a deer, a big theropod walks up on a deer no-sells it, doesn't give a shit, keeps eating.
Yes.
No reaction. Long enough for the Therizino to get above him, size him up, wind up, and fucking swat him.
Yeah.
Like that. Like that was just a complete scene ruiner for me.
Okay. Yeah, that was a bad part for sure. It did not ruin the tension of the later parts for me. So.
It still did for me, because like it just slowly creeps up and stalks up on Claire. Like, the only way I was about to be okay with like her getting into the water hiding like that and the Theory being like cool with it is if instead of roaring at her because okay, that's what this herbivore does, if it just started taking a drink from the pond and then moved on.
Oh, that would have been good. That would
Like
have been
that
that
would
would
have
have been
just
a,
been like
yeah.
the break the fear, like, yes, okay, this thing's territorial, even, and we had to display that by having it take out a deer that no sold it. Like, I mean, I at least would have preferred like a compy or something that had reason to be like skittering around its feet and being nosy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they've shown that compies are ballsy beyond their size class. Like,
Right.
fine with that, but no, it had to be a deer. Like, the compy didn't even have to be biting at it. It could just be scampering around on a tree log, and the theory just swats the compy because get out of my zone. Like, especially if it did like a threat display first, like if it splayed its claws and hooted at it or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't do any of that. And then when it tracks Claire into the water, and then suddenly when she's under the water and obscured by a little bit of duckweed, he's like, "Oh, no, you're cool in my territory now. You're fine. You're a frog now. I'm fine."
So did you catch that it was supposed to be blind?
Oh, in one eye, I thought.
At
Was
least
it both?
at least one eye. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be both, but yeah, I didn't even realize it was supposed to be blind.
I caught that it had a whited out grayed eye, and that's why when it walked around her hanging in the trees, it wasn't clocking her there.
Yeah, I noticed the eye looked pretty white. I just attributed it to a design decision, either from the I can't remember the word now. Nictating or nicating? Nictating? The membrane that covers the third eyelid that covers the eye.
A tall bipedal herbivore would need a nictating lens. Now, if we found out Suchomimus or things like that had them, that'd make complete fucking sense.
Yeah, I don't know how widespread those are in the animal kingdom. The raptors in JP1 had them. You could see it in the kitchen scene. It blinked with the third eyelid. It's hard to see. But I thought the sound design on the theory was fantastic. Those sounds it made were great. I like seeing a dinosaur that has a unique sound assortment to it, It sounded really distinct because Jurassic World films have been really bad for reusing sound effects.
Yeah, I guess I was too out of the scene after he fucking Wolverined the deer.
Yeah, and I was kind of torn on the behavior of the theory. Like, I thought the scene was well constructed, the tension was good, the sound design was great. I am kind of torn on the tired trope of the aggressive therizinosaur. The thing's always presented as some territorial son of a bitch, and it's really, that trope kind of wears on me. Conversely, I'm happy to see aggressive herbivore behavior in a Jurassic film instead of them being big teddy bears. So,
right, that I'm fine with that. It just, and the other thing with they could have also fixed the deer SWAT by so they established the gray eye with as he circles Claire, and then if it was above the deer, and like it has the wrong side of the head, and then again this is still completely subverted though because the deer doesn't fucking react. If it suddenly like turned its head to get the other eye on it because it is being a herbivore, no binocular vision, and then when it sees that it like gets surprised and takes a swing at it. But you don't see any of that. You get none of that. You just get walking up on deer, hanging out, like pausing for effect, and whack.
Yeah, it's got a very like Indoraptor winking at the camera aspect to that, like pause slap bit. It's like really comedically, like a scene that's very much intended to be comedic, which is jarring.
Right. No, that too many things in the theory bit ruined it for me. And but yeah, like I said, if he had just taken a drink from the water, would have helped that, to me at least, so much. Like something simple like that, just to justify why. Yeah.
It's fully understandable.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just not a good person to ask about that scene because it ruined what could have been a nice dino introduction for something there. What about you, Eric? What do you think?
I enjoyed it. I think your criticisms are totally justified. I didn't think about the turn at the time. I did think the deer sort of staying put was like way too,
somebody who's never seen a real deer before.
Clearly a setup. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think it was when with with Claire going underwater and everything, and the sound design and all that. That part's good. But yeah, I think you're both right. I enjoy it for the most part.
Okay. Then we get another contrived dinosaur set piece. Maybe skipping ahead a little bit, but we get the amber mines with the Dimetrodons. Non-dinosaur, I know. Another creature set piece.
Did Giga show up later? Or after
I
that?
have that in my notes after this piece.
Oh,
but
okay.
No, Giga.
I thought it was
showed up-
right after. I thought it was right after. But
I think it intercuts between the two.
maybe.
Oh,
The
okay.
Giga part comes when Owen is looking for Claire. But the Claire
Okay.
theory scene is before the Amber Mines, I think is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So we get introduced to the Dimetrodons next. We already talked a little bit about that. Why are they underground? Another contrived dinosaur set piece. Yeah, why are they there? I don't know. I don't think there's too much for us to say about that, probably. It's just a big question mark.
They were a different dinosaur to have there, I guess.
Yeah. Then, yeah, we get to we get Malcolm's rant, I think, before the Giga scene against Dodgen, which is, I think, a pretty solid little rant. Malcolm saying rat bastard is fun.
Yeah. No, more really good Goldblum stuff I like there.
Yeah,
And finally
for sure.
getting to unload on this guy because the gig is over.
Yeah, maybe not as nuanced as some of his JP1 speeches, but again, with these script writers, it's about the best we could hope for, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Rex and the Giga encounter over the deer carcass, which is what comes next. I thought that was actually fairly animalistic, which is, we usually don't get actually animalistic interactions in these world films. I like that the Giga nips the Rex and the Rex pieces the fuck out.
Yeah, I also liked that.
Very much like a lion hyena interaction over in a carcass. So.
And also, in retrospect, because I was at his fucking museum, so I gotta bring this up, but not intentionally, but it reflects very haha screw you to Horner and his Jurassic Park 3 making the first time Rex and Spino run into each other, it turns into a full knockdown drag out to the death.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's really funny to me that they did that like good realistic interaction, and then in the end it becomes the big video game fight again. But we'll get to the ending.
Well, but that one makes sense because they are enclosed.
I guess. I have
Territorial at that point. Oh, sorry.
I mean, it's established that they're gonna fight and kill each other at some point.
Yes,
earlier
that's-
by dialogue, like whatever. It's every Trevorrow Jurassic movie has to have some big dumb fight at the end. Fine. We'll talk more about that later. I wrote Grant falls off ladder and is fine. Seems unlikely.
Yeah, I think they show him like really hit his head really.
He
quick.
looks like he hits his head on the rock. He looks like he should
Yeah.
be out for the rest of the
Yeah,
film.
like, that's a concussion, I'm sure.
Yeah, but he's just fine. Then there's like the scene where his hat is like he grabs his hat before the Dimetrodon can snap at him or whatever. I don't remember Grant ever being super attached to his hat. Billy saves it for him in JP3, which I guess is the reference they're going for. But that's a thing Billy does. It's not like I don't ever recall Grant having like an Indiana Jones level of attachment to his hat. Unless it's also just supposed to be an Indiana Jones reference.
I think a little bit, yeah.
I think so too, and I think that's also an aspect of him being different from Indiana Jones. I think that was a way to differentiate him. Like Indy would have went for that hat.
But he did go for his hat. That's what I'm
Well, I
saying.
mean, Indy would have
He
got
focused on the hat.
Indy would have got it.
Didn't he get it?
No, he does not. I'm
No,
almost-
no.
Okay, I don't remember that. I didn't notice the hat after that, so I did notice positively or negatively the hat. It was okay.
No, he doesn't. He gives up on it because Ellie tells him to give up
He
on it.
clearly has a hat budget, but he doesn't really care about it. If the T-Rex blows it off in JP1, and then
Yeah. So it's just a hacky Indiana Jones reference. Fine.
yes, yeah.
I already mentioned Malcolm talking about the codes being great. Why is there a code? Why is it locked? Did Ramsey forget to mention that there was going to be a locked door? Because Ramsey knew where they were and where the exit point was going to be, but he just forgot the door was locked. I thought that was a little weird.
I missed what the code was.
I don't think it matters. The code's
it had to have been a reference because I feel like it.
I tried to.
I feel like that's the perfect place to have like some cheeky reference.
Yeah, the first code is 1984, which is probably just a weird reference to the book 1984.
Maybe, yeah.
And then Malcolm tries like a couple other codes, and then in the control room, Ramsey puts in the real code and opens it. It looked like it was just
The one they were struggling
buttons. It looked like it was just like random numbers.
Okay.
I didn't write it down because I couldn't.
Ramsey
see.
gives him the code, and I don't.
I think Ramsey just puts in the code in the control room.
Yeah, he opens it, but Malcolm thinks he finally got it.
Yeah, Malcolm thinks he
Okay.
managed to guess it correctly, and I couldn't see what the code Malcolm thought was the code. I couldn't see what he put in there. But yeah, kind of a weird sequence.
I think he says it, and he says, "Of course." Like,
Yeah, which makes it which assigns significance to the number he chose, and yet none of us have any idea what the fuck the number was.
yeah, exactly.
Weird. Next I have Yay Dilos, followed by What's Wrong with Your Face. I like that we have Dilos. I like the general behavior with them, but I don't think they look very good. They look like they're fully animatronic, and I think they look really stiff and weird.
They looked all practical, yeah.
Yeah, which is great to have fully practical Dilos as a callback to the original fully practical Dilo, but they look so much worse than the original Dilo, I think. Part of it's the eyes.
Winston.
Well, exactly. Part of it is in the close-up shot, and I noticed this in the trailer, and I commented on that, I think, in the reaction video I did on that. But when you get the close-up shot with Claire and the Dilo, that Dilo looks like a hand puppet. Like, its eyes completely don't move. They look like a stuffed animal's eyes. And it's just weird. I mean, they look like that kind of in all the scenes. It's a little bit better masked in, like, the Dodgson scene in the tram later on, but they still look rather stiff and weird.
It's because they got him in the fog then.
Yeah, the lighting covers it up a little bit. And I think maybe part of it too is that just we're dealing with a filmmaker who doesn't have the caliber of Spielberg to like frame the shots perfectly to like cover the weaknesses of the animatronics.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, because Spielberg has worked with animatronics his whole fucking career.
Right. Spielberg,
You know,
in terms of like framing shots, is like a masterclass, if nothing else. Like
Mm-hmm.
in Trevorrow doesn't have that experience.
No, he's worked with CGI too much.
A lot of people dislike Owen grabbing the Dilo's throat, which I didn't mind actually. It might reminded me a little bit of like alligator wrestling.
Yeah, that was again. I
didn't either. I feel like I think people might have more of an issue with him just being there at the right moment.
Yeah, well, his action movie aura kicks in, and
Yeah.
So of course that works.
The usual plot contrivance that people showing up exactly when they need to. It happens over and over in this film in particular. So
I think with the Dilo, that's exactly where you grab. So that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, part of the concept with the Dilo spitting venom, the justification for that in the novel, for them being venomous, is because science used to think that Dilos had weak jaws, weak bites, which has been
that's not true anymore.
Yeah, that's not true anymore. That's not considered true. But that was the context for JP1, the novel, and the film. So it makes sense that he could clamp its mouth closed. It also tracks with like alligators. Alligators have a really strong bite, but it's entirely dependent upon them biting. When it comes to an alligator opening its mouth, it actually isn't very strong at that. Because it doesn't need to open its mouth against prey, it needs to close its mouth against prey. So all the muscles are built for snapping the jaw closed, not for opening it. So you can hold an alligator's mouth closed pretty well if you know what you're doing.
I literally got to watch that at the Reptile Gardens in South Dakota last week.
So I thought that scene was solid. I thought it was a fine way to like deal with it. Plus the Dilo having a weak bite, it being dependent on poison. It also makes sense that the other Dilos would scatter at that moment, I think. Because now there's a bunch of prey the same size as them. Like, go find something easier to hunt. Dodgson.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm fine with that. A lot of people don't like that scene, but I think it's perfectly fine, other than the issues they have with the animatronics.
And yeah, I guess I wasn't too bothered by animatronics. I just more, that's convenience.
I think at the end of the day, I'm happier to have jankier animatronics than I am to have janky CG. So I'll take it. I just wish they were animatronics on par with the original JP, because it would have been. We haven't had that for so long, so I just.
And we're never going to, because there's nobody practicing it like Winston did. Like the man was out of a job. Don't you mean extinct?
It was a combination of just like the practice and like the constant practice of doing that for like every film through like the 80s and early 90s needs these practical effects, and everybody goes to Winston. And just like, I think there's a level of just raw talent too that some of the modern effects studios, are missing. Like, there's a reason it, even in the heyday, it still was like always Winston Studios for like the best practical effects. It wasn't like there was multiple effects houses that were putting out the same caliber.
Yeah,
So,
nowadays you'd basically you'd need Weta.
and part of it's budget too. It's like the studios need to be willing to dedicate the budget towards effects, and it's a really hard sell to modern studio execs to do practical.
So, and that's another part of like the practical effects done here, and like saying they look cheap. Well, they have to do that within budget.
Yeah.
Like those people that make those could have been talented, but because they don't have the clout that Winston Studios does,
right?
Then
and that's been a problem with
that budget.
That's been a big thing that's held back like the AVP films and stuff. Ignoring the quality issues in those films in general, a lot of the problems with like the animatronics in those films are down to budget.
Mm-hmm.
Like ADI can do some decent work. Try not to get too far into AVP discussions here, but some of the effects people that still exist that do practical can do good work when they're given the money to do so.
Yeah, I'm just trying to walk back your comment. You've scared away all your animatronic followers and viewers by saying like there's not the talent of Stan Winston there. I'm like, man, they know that. Don't rub it in.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, next point.
When we get to the part where Dodson decides to burn the locusts and dispose of the evidence, pretty bad sequence. So I feel at some point it's said that the lab is on like the 6th floor underground. It's ridiculous that the like quarantine insta burn system is on a moving fucking rail that slowly burns the entire room instead of it just being like a spontaneous ignition from all corners or whatever that, immolates the entire area. Very goofy movie tropes there with that slow moving sequence. The 6th floor underground lab vents directly outside.
Mm-hmm.
And that vent can be broken by some sizable but still bugs. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Plus the fact that the locusts are being burned by presumably a very hot flame since it's supposed to sterilize a lab, and yet are able to fly for miles and miles outside of the lab before dying finally.
Very sturdy.
Yeah, very goofy. Weird sequence.
Just
visually fantastic though.
Yeah.
Gee, that's convenient.
And then everybody's like Dodson or whatever, they start burning the lab and then they just fucking leave because they don't seem to be like startled by the locusts escaping on fire until they're looking outside from the control room. So nobody stayed there to make sure the burn fucking completed and disposed of the evidence.
Some people did. Dodson pieced out, but a couple of scientists stayed there and they, freaked out when they got out, and I think they die in it basically.
Maybe. Okay. I'd have to rewatch the sequence. Yeah, it could work.
I'm pretty sure a couple of scientists died down there when they realized, my God, they're breaking out. Because they break the glass first. Because that is one thing I'll slightly give them, is that they didn't just go from that lab into the air. They broke out of that lab and then flooded that whole floor, and then presumably found the same super convenient...
I thought they just broke through the vent. I don't remember them breaking through the glass or anything.
Oh, I thought they broke the glass.
I don't remember. They primarily broke the vent, but maybe they also broke the glass. I'm not sure.
Gotcha. Could be. I just assumed they found the same super convenient tunnel and vent system that easy escape through.
I thought they were going to break the glass because I think they focused on that one shot of them sort of spinning around the room. But then they just sort of there's a vent.
Yeah, they fly around, butt up against the walls, and then they break through the vent and escape. I think you're right, Eric.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and that brings us to the Inferno in the valley. It's a good ending set piece. How they get the Inferno is pretty silly, but it's a pretty good thing. I have 18 numbered points for the end sequence of the film. So I'll just go through these point by point. Point number 1, forest fire is striking. Yes. Point number 2, the most stupidly convenient car crash. Wow. That they wreck the car as the locusts are falling, and then they roll down the hillside directly towards the other characters.
Yeah.
Gee, that's convenient.
Holy shit, that is a whole nother level of plot convenience.
Like, and they could have fixed that one very easily by not crash. Well, if they don't crash the car, then they don't have to. Well, no. Yeah, it's just. God damn it. Like, they didn't have to crash the car. They could have heard the car somehow through the inferno and went and flagged them down. And when they flag them down, they're like, oh, we don't have quite enough room for everybody to get in here. And then the Giga shows up, and then we start that sequence.
Yeah, there's so many other ways they could do it. They could have the car driving towards the tower because it's a landmark or something or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. But no, we had to wreck the car.
Yeah, just awful script writing. And then Claire's dialogue after the crash is also just awful, where she's just like, listen. It's like, holy, she's like surprised there's people inside the car that was just driving probably a moment ago.
Oh, I didn't even remember that part.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. And then we get the Giga that shows up, and we get the double "don't move" line.
So everybody fine.
Yeah, everybody's fine again. I don't know if anybody has even a scratch on them in that sequence. I wasn't paying enough attention anymore. But yeah,
that one makes a little more sense because the car did just roll.
Yeah, it's just a roll. That is not as ridiculous as the plane crash, but
yeah,
at this point, it's starting to wear a little bit thin that nobody's getting scratched up through this entire film.
Besides Claire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they put Claire through the ringer in these films. She's the one who always has. It's like Owen's contract just says, like, I'm not putting on any fucking makeup or prosthetics or scratches.
Yes.
I'm not going to sit in that chair for 5 fucking minutes at the start of filming. I'm just going to show up, do my scenes, and leave. Which actually kind of...
complete trooper.
Yeah, which kind of tracks, because Owen is also the one who refuses to do video game voiceovers. Chris Pratt is the only person they cannot get to, like, do any extra stuff for the films.
And not just these, busy, like any of them. He won't do his... He's not that busy. Like, he must just have a exorbitant price kind of thing.
Yeah.
So nobody's
I feel like I've heard Chris Pratt's a bit of a dick, but maybe I made that up. I don't know.
I mean...
Chris Pratt, if you're watching, I apologize. If you actually watch my channel, then you're great. And everything I said is not true.
He might have a bit of the Stephanie McMahon thing where I think he's another one that I heard that pulled similar to a Ryan Reynolds and ran off with some of the Star-Lord costumes so he could do like Make-A-Wish or like visiting kids in the hospital type stuff. But then that's where, and Eric probably knows where I'm going with this by mentioning Stephanie McMahon, where or not altruism. Fuck, now I can't remember the quote how she says it. But it's the future
is the future of advertising.
Yes, there we go. Thank you very much, fellow Rasselmans fan. But yes, I wonder how much of that is just PR work. And it not like Ryan Reynolds, where I fully believe that motherfucker stole one of the Deadpool costumes so he could cosplay it around his fucking house when he feels like
Yeah, he seems like the type.
Yeah.
Well, he had a very rough breakup with Anna Faris.
Yes, that's another reason why I could see where you think that.
And there's two sides to that, which I'm not really sure which is the truth.
Right, like, and that's where I could see Jesse getting the Chris Pratt's actually a dick.
Yeah, and this is like vague recollections of internet conversations on Reddit or some shit, or some fucking gossip article I saw a headline on and scrolled past on like my phone or something. So,
but anyway, let's not talk about Chris Pratt's terrible home life.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Giga shows up. We get the double "don't move." I'm really tired of the "don't move" line. It was incorrect originally. The Jurassic Park novels pointed out as being incorrect, and the films have just ran with it. And I wish they wouldn't. As much as I may not like Grant being wrong, it's just a very weird.
Well, that one, I admittedly don't see it as a don't move its visions based on movement. That was just the callback and for them to get that moment. I seen that as like running will literally trigger its predatory response right now.
Yeah, but then they just run anyway.
Well,
like in every movie, don't move and then everybody runs.
Well, that's also kind of just as an aforementioned and nobody listening to Grant when they should.
Yeah. I'm just tired. It's like the I'll be back of the Jurassic franchise is starting to feel like that. So I don't like I'll be back from Terminator. So there you go. The Giga breathes fire. That
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, I kinda, I'm not bothered by that if that was like the final confrontation with the Giga, because now it has like scarring internally because it gets
Yeah,
okay.
it's like a huge fucking fireball. It's like it
Yeah.
swallowed a fucking stick of dynamite or some shit.
Yeah,
Not like a torch
I,
just got thrown in there.
I get that it has embers in it, like an active flame in its mouth, and then it exhales. So oxygen goes over the flame and stokes it and spews it out.
Well, I saw it as more like whatever Malcolm threw in his mouth.
Which was a burning locust, not even
Yeah.
like a stick. It was a.
For
It was
some
a.
reason, it exploded.
Yeah.
That part is different. Like when I was okay with it when it exhaled and flames got stoked. But yes, the explosion, the other stuff. I'll say this though, I was fully expecting Malcolm to bite it there.
I kind of did too. It had that vibe.
It was definitely set up that way. Yeah.
I don't even think I would have hated it if they did kill him there.
I would have been a little upset.
I would have been fine with it because it's kind of a
I'm
you don't-
sentimental that way.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm happy that Goldblum gets to reprise this character in voice work or wherever he feels what he's willing to, and clearly he's very willing to.
Yeah, they shouldn't kill him just because of that. Because
No, but
Goldblum
it
will
did
do
seem like-
anything. So don't
I
kill his
would've-
character.
right. I would have been fine with it because it's like you don't get to pull this stunt twice.
Yeah, it would. That's exactly why I would have been okay with it. It would have been a fitting death based on the character's previous action. Like
Yeah.
compared to a lot of other legacy character deaths in like other franchises, Star Wars, that would have been a much more fitting one than we usually
Yeah.
get in these kind of films.
Yes, so I was.
What were you talking about?
Who aren't we talking about
Yeah, yeah.
with that cough specifically? But anyway, we don't want to get out of that. We're already like almost an hour past when we wanted to
Yeah,
start.
we got to wrap this extremely extended conversation up. So let's keep rapid firing these. Next scene, we get the Dino Crisis reference, which I liked and was not expecting. It was in the trailer, so I knew it was coming, but
Yep.
I thought it was
also-
interesting.
I liked it except for Owen's action movie aura part of it.
Yeah, it's very very much that. I saw a lot of people didn't like the fact that they just like stabbed the Giga in the nose and like tased it and then it went away, but I thought that was reasonable. Like the dinosaur can't get to the meat. It's not going to sit there and get stung by bees if it can help it. So
Yeah, exactly. The bee analogy is the same thing I felt.
Yeah.
Bear sticks its nose in a bee's nest, gets stung a few times. And if it doesn't get a reward, it's like not worth the effort anymore. I'm out.
yeah, it pulls its head out, goes about attacking them a different way. Totally reasonable. Another thing people are complaining about that I don't get. Next, point 7. We get Biosyn and Dodgson bringing the animals inside into the tiny amphitheater. That's their emergency animal roundup plan. Very weird. I just found that a strange contingency plan. It's
Yep.
really just to get the Theory, Giga, and Rex into the same area for the finale. So there's no logic to it, and yeah. I like that we finally get the Grant and Sattler meeting Owen scene here near the end finally, and they don't need intros to each other. They don't like introduce each other, which is great. But then they talk for like 5 minutes about what they've done in the past, completely invalidating the fact that they didn't need to introduce each other initially. So I initially was very happy with the scene, and then as it went longer, I became disappointed that they felt the need to remind the audience of what all these characters who've been watching for 2 hours have done in the past.
I honestly thought they were gonna do like I was the kid that you scared with the raptor claw.
Oh God, yeah, that stupid fan theory.
Because he recognized him. It's like oh, and he's like, oh, you train raptors. It's like oh.
Yeah,
That was a shitty fan theory for a while, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
No,
Yeah, it
I thought
was,
they were gonna
yeah.
run with it for a second there.
Yeah, I like the "You train raptors" line. That's a fun riff on the "You bred raptors." That's the kind of
Yes.
callback I can
Yeah.
get behind. It's just
Okay.
all the dialogue surrounding that is pointless and probably just there to get that scene in, that line in.
I wanted that dialogue to kind of go a little bit longer because I feel like Grant would have like a hold up with that.
It's,
They-
yeah, but it's not like the
"Oh, here's guy
situation.
that trains raptors.
Right. It's not. They're not in a situation where Grant can pick his brain really. So
Yeah.
Right.
which
I-
makes
I
it makes it more jarring that they're
Yeah.
taking any time at all to
I
discuss
think
that.
people wanted that dialogue quite a bit, you know,
Yeah.
regarding this movie, and they're like, "No, we gotta move."
Right. Much like we do in this discussion. Points 9 and 10, the Barbasol can. Point 9, bold caps. Why the fuck does he have the can? Point 10, why the fuck does he care enough to save the can? We already covered this, basically, so we don't need to reiterate on that.
Yep.
Point 11, shitty power systems in your advanced facility during an emergency. Very Jurassic Park novel. It's goofy, it makes no sense, but I'm okay with it in that context because...
It's a Crichton bit.
Yeah, corporate nonsense is part of the lifeblood of the franchise. So, okay, fine. Point 12, the Raptors go for the throat. I thought that was a solid Jurassic Park 3 callback. To actually have Grant like change a little bit of his understanding about raptors from interacting with them.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that was another example of a way to do a decent callback without it being jarring. It's also fairly subtle what he's talking about. Okay, point 13. This is when we get to the one Malcolm scene that I thought was out of character and very strange. We get Malcolm on the radio telling them what to do to like restore the power. And Malcolm babbles inanely about 3 rows up or 4 rows down, and he can't tell them correctly what button to push. It's the complete inverse of this scene in the original Jurassic Park, where Hammond is the one who's a bumbling fool in regards to reading a schematic. Malcolm picks up the radio, tells him straight up, follow the wire on the ceiling or whatever, to find the power box. So that felt completely out of character that Malcolm would be in some weird bumbling comic relief role in that moment, when it's literally like a pre-established character trait of him that he like is good at giving directions. Very out of place and weird.
We're making a callback for the sake of humor. Right?
Yeah, it's like now he's bad at the
logic.
Thing he was good at. It was weird, just weird.
All I can think is that it was meant to be the callback to Hammond and the role, or not really role reversal, but of flipping things a little bit, but unnecessary, definitely.
Yeah. Point 14, Owen's fucking hand again. We can just move right past that. Point 15, we get to Dodgson's death. I thought Dodgson's death was a bit strange. I like seeing the Dilos. There's points of the death I like. I don't like the Dilos being in the tunnel. Why the fuck are they here? We covered that before. I don't need to get into that too much. Him retreating to the train and like the Dilos following him is very weird callback to the Jeep. It almost gives the Dilophosaurs like this trait of liking tight confined spaces.
Despite having in canon a ranged attack where they don't want to be.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't spit on him yet at that point, right? So they had no reason to win. Did I mention how I felt like though that was a good parallel to novel Hammond's death though?
Yeah, you mentioned that. And I'm gonna get to that too. I have a point on that in my notes here for this extended point. This is probably my longest point for the finale. His last line, "What's your story?" Awful last line.
Yep.
It's like it's a shit line delivered. He's way too like calm in that moment for having just fled from them outside and being cornered. It's like a bad callback to Nedry's lines, which Nedry delivers his lines when the Dilo's not yet a threat, so they work. They don't work here. Even if it was a good line, it doesn't work in this context because he should be shitting himself because he's surrounded. Bad fucking line. I do, however, like when all the Dilos start spitting on him and you actually see the venom like start taking effect. So that's kind of how that calls back to Hammond's death, where you get the compy venom taking effect and Hammond starts to like.
Oh wait, can you see like his eyes or his paralysis starting to kick in? What's going on?
Dodgson starts to collapse. Like when he gets spit on initially, he's very like active and like and then he starts to like slow down and like fall to the floor.
Oh.
So
in the moment, I didn't read it as such, and that's just me missing it. I was just reading it as him kind of resigning himself.
I took it as the paralysis kicking in.
That makes way more sense. Yeah.
Because initially he's like I think he grabs at the or paws at the first few spit things that get on him, and then he stops. You know, his movement's slow and everything, and he stops reacting as much. And I thought that was a nice extension of like what we saw with Nedry, because we don't really see Nedry react to the venom too much beyond screaming because he got stuff in his eyes, and here we actually get more of the paralysis. So I really like that aspect of it. Yes, Eric.
I was gonna make a lewd joke, but I won't.
I said the word "cum" in this review, so please go ahead.
I'll just say bukkake.
Yes, that's what I figured the joke was going.
Highbrow humor. We're always bringing.
If anybody's familiar with the Belinda Blinks or Blinked podcast, there's something about using substances to do up somebody's hair. We could also bring that into this.
Okay. We're deviating way too much.
Yes,
now.
yes. This is getting very much off topic. Point 16. The Wu Redemption reaches its conclusion. I'm okay with this. We basically mentioned this earlier. Could have been done a lot better. I personally like them leaving Wu alive and redeeming the character.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Point 17. The Theory Giga Rex fight is awful.
Yep.
I kind of agree.
Possibly the worst moment of the film, in my opinion. It's not.
I'm not going that far.
It's not a very good fight. It rehashes a
I
lot
wouldn't
of
call it that. But
things we've seen before.
a lot of moving pieces. Yeah.
It's very weird because they do the fake out Rex death, which really doesn't work in the context of the film because it's a callback to the Cretaceous scene that they cut and put on YouTube. Without the prologue being in the film, like, it doesn't work. They like do the slow zoom in on like the Rex being unconscious and the eye not moving before the eye moves and snaps into focus or whatever. And that is a direct reference to the prologue that was removed from the film.
Mm-hmm.
That's a consequence of the editing, of course, of them trimming the film down because it was too long.
Right.
But yeah, it's just not great.
I also, similar to Malcolm, I was fine with Rexy dying there.
Yeah, they've teased it so fucking much.
Yeah, that was kind of a put her out of her misery kind of thing.
Yeah, like Rexy continuously losing fights and like fake out deaths and shit is exhausting. Then yeah, the Giga and the Theory start fighting. Rexy wakes up and just headbutts the Giga directly onto the Theory's claws.
Mm-hmm.
Which work like Wolverine claws now.
Yeah, they just shoot straight through that thing. They don't hit a single fucking bone on the way in. Every single claw is perfectly pointed into the body so that all of them go through. Not a single one like skewed to the side. Like, yeah, ridiculous. And then as soon as the Giga's dead,
one of them was broken because when the Giga bit its hand, I did notice that one claw got broke.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, but I did hear that. So I'm curious if you only see 5 claws because I didn't notice. Like when it gets impaled, I'm curious if you only see the 5 claws and not the 6, because I thought they were all there.
That'd be a wonderful oversight for this movie, considering some of the things that are already issues.
Yeah, but we can't say that that's an oversight because I literally don't know if they're there or not. And then the Therizinosaurus, which previously has been an unstoppable murder machine, is completely cool with the T-Rex. It only hates the Giga and humans.
We don't really get to see that fall. I feel like they cut away from that pretty quick. They
still do the stupid cheesy Trevorrow victory pose at each other.
I read that more as Theory doing like a threat display again.
I mean,
no, it's very much supposed to be a.
Yeah, I know how Trevorrow works with his big dinosaur fight finales. So
yeah.
It's the metaphorical fist bump. Again.
Well, it's not just him though, because sadly it was kind of established in the very first Jurassic Park. Because Rexy, like Trevorrow wants his when dinosaurs ruled the earth.
Yeah,
shot.
But Rexy doesn't team up with another dinosaur to do that and then have some. It has its victory pose, but the victory pose is for the audience very explicitly. In the context of the film, the Rex is just roaring. Yeah. Like that works in the way that like Blue and Rex teaming up doesn't.
I know, but I'm saying like that's why he keeps shoehorning it in, because he wants that moment.
He's going for that big Spielberg stinger, and he just doesn't know how to pull it off. It becomes way too much anthropomorphism applied to the animals.
Yep. Or at least Godzillaism.
I legitimately fucking facepalmed when I saw that, and like
he just keeps trying to make kaiju happen in Jurassic Park.
I think I might have actually exclaimed, "What the actual fuck." I basically expected it to come, but I was still very disappointed that it was there. I knew the fight was there at the end. I'd gotten that spoiled that the Giga is killed by being impaled in the claws, and I'm like, oh, that's fucking stupid,
I didn't see
but whatever.
That part. I just knew the final fight was Theory, Rex, and Giga.
Yeah. So like, I was fully prepared for that awfulness. That didn't hit me as much. It's just the victory pose bit at the end that was what pushed me over the fucking end, over the edge. Like, oh god. But then the final point 18, we get the various ending shots. The big one, oh, actually I have point 19 after this. Well, the big one here that I'm commenting on is 2 additional Tyrannosaurs show up.
I mean, that's the buck and the female.
It is, yes, confirmed to be the buck and the doe from Lost World.
Like, I recognized the buck's color as soon as they walked up there.
Yeah, it was too short for me to like verify the colors in the theater and notice it, but yeah, it's confirmed to be the buck and doe, which it's nice to see them back and confirmed alive, I guess, but it introduces a lot of questions too of where the fuck have they been.
And that's where I assume they've been in that sanctuary for
nope,
like a long time. That was my thought.
Nope, because there's a dialogue bit early on that confirms that Rexy just arrived at the sanctuary before Sattler and Grant did, and is the first T-Rex to be at the sanctuary.
Ah, okay.
So they, the buck and doe, either make their way to the sanctuary on their own, because they heard there was a really cool fight and they wanted to be part of it or something, or we're cutting ahead in the coda to like the sanctuary has been reestablished, the dinosaurs are still contained in there, and more dinosaurs are being brought in, which is probably what that scene is supposed to be. The buck and the doe have been captured at some point after the end of the film and transferred to the sanctuary where the Rexy is still living, which is fine. It's just not explained properly in the film at all, which makes it very jarring. That was another moment where I went, what the fuck? Because I've been so used to Rexy being the last Rex and like accepting that. I'm pretty sure in one of the other films they say she's the last Tyrannosaurus, the last of her kind.
Yeah, we've established how much of this shit can you trust
Right,
at all.
right. So there's like so much explanation that should be there to explain why the fuck the buck and the doe are back, but it's not. So whatever. Probably find out about it in the next season of Camp Cretaceous or something. I'm sure they'll use that to patch this up, right?
It's Camp Cretaceous is now our Clone Wars animated.
Yeah, the cartoon that has to prop up the shortcomings of the movies.
Yep.
Point 19, we end with the various shots of the dinosaurs in the world, including the scene with the paras and the horses running from the trailer, which uses stock footage of horses. It feels a little cheap. I legitimately thought that since that was stock footage, when people figured that out, my thought was that was just a for the trailer scene, maybe, but no, it's from the movie. So we open with some shots that I felt were a little cheap, reusing Battle of Big Rock shots, and we end with some shots that I feel were a little cheap, using stock footage. So weird. I'm not going to go over my notes on like what I would change with the movie. I think I mostly covered it. I just like to see the connection between Biosyn, the crops, and the locust not made explicit at the start of the film, basically, and make the CEO character somebody different than Dodgson. Those are the broad strokes. And figure out a way to get the characters together that's a little bit better and not as contrived. So yeah, I think that's kind of my thoughts. If we want to wrap this up, any other closing words? Any other closing thoughts?
I like the Apatosaurus scene.
Oh, the early one with the snow.
Yeah. Logging camp.
I thought it was fine. The Apatosaurs feel a little big there, but I'm not actually sure if they're terribly oversized. Maybe it's because they're supposed to be off in the distance that makes them feel like they're probably pretty oversized. Whereas if that was like, I don't know. It's a little weird now to me that every dinosaur in the franchise likes flares.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit.
Like my interpretation of the original T-Rex scene is mostly that Rex is just curious about things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like it just ate a goat and a lawyer, so I think it's mostly just playing around and like sampling what a car is and sampling what a thing is. So it sees the flare, so it chases the flare because it's just another new curious thing in its environment. But suddenly it's just dinosaurs fucking love flares and they can't get enough. I thought using the tractor horn as a way to like bait the Apatosaurus away was good enough. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a fairly clever thing to do, and the flare just kind of subtracts from that and ruins it. I mean, it doesn't like fully ruin it, but it like is entirely unnecessary and weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, I feel like we've covered everything. I'm sure there's more stuff that I'll think of in moments, but
Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be fridge moments for weeks.
Yeah.
Especially because I intend to see it a few more times. I mean, I didn't hate the film or anything. I have a really hard time figuring out where to place it in my rankings. But
Are you in generally the same spot as most of the current rhetoric, or well, the current sort of feelings on it, like on Reddit and stuff like that? I feel like they're jumping on it
it's really
Fallen
weird.
Kingdom.
I've been really curious about it because there's like it's got really good audience scores on websites.
it does. I thought it was like 29%.
No, the review score on Rotten Tomatoes is the worst in the franchise, but the audience score is like the third best after Jurassic World and Jurassic Park, or at least it was last time I checked it a few days ago. It's like 20. It's like last time I checked it was like 32% review score and then like 75% audience score.
Huh.
Yeah, very weird. There's a lot of I see a lot of support from it from like generic moviegoers who are like, "Yay, dinos, fighty, fight."
30% critics, 79% audience.
Shit. So yeah, even higher than I said for the audience score by a marginal amount, but still. Yeah, it's very weird.
Surprising.
It's the first Jurassic film where there's a really significant difference, I think, between the two scores. In terms of like plot, this is my least favorite Jurassic film, I think. Just because the plot is so hard to follow and there's so many confusing and illogical moments. It's like as bad as some sequences might be in some of the other films, like the Wikipedia entry describing the lore of the franchise isn't tarnished by that, by like sloppy filmmaking or bad dialogue. This is like the first movie that legitimately introduces ideas that like really muddy up like the lore of the franchise. It's kind of like that Star Wars effect of like where plot elements and lore is introduced that just actively detracts from other aspects of the franchise. It's like a little bit of that.
And I feel like they had to involve Maisie just because of the reaction to the last movie.
Yeah, it's very weird. Yeah, there's a little bit of like
they
Rise of
need to
Skywalker
clean
in
that up
terms of
when they-
Maisie.
Yeah, it does feel to me like that.
Which is weird because it's not like Bayona was entirely separate from Trevorrow in making Fallen Kingdom. It's like, why did they have to retcon that character? Trevorrow laid out the plot for Fallen Kingdom, I'm pretty sure. Maybe even wrote the original script, or maybe wrote the whole script for all I fucking know. So I don't know why they had to retcon shit from one movie ago when the same creative team is involved. It's very weird.
It just seems so unnecessary too.
Yeah. It just makes it more confusing and weirder. And yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm
covered everything.
I'm fine with it. Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll leave it there. Feel free to lambaste us in the comments.